We will now reconvene the regular meeting of the Lompoc City Council for Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Ball.
Present.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Present.
Councilmember Cordova.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Victor Vega.
Here.
Mayor Janelle Osborne.
Present. Mr. Malave, reportable action from closed session.
Yes, Mayor, the City Council met in closed session tonight on 3 closed session items. The first was a conference with labor negotiators with the IBEW. The City Council had a discussion with staff on that item, but no reportable action was taken. The second 2 closed sessions had to do with public employee appointment of the city manager and labor negotiations with the city manager position. City Council discussed those items with the city attorney, and by a vote of 4-1 with Councilmember Cordova voting no, City Council has reached a tentative agreement on an employment contract terms to appoint Dean Alborough as permanent city manager starting January 2nd, 2022, with first date of employment, or first weekday at work, January 3rd, 2022. The final contract with all employment terms making them public will be on the City Council agenda on December 21st for the City Council's final approval.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Alborough. Would you like to say a few words?
I sure would. Well, I'd like to say thank you to the mayor and city council, but I also wanted to say thank you to Jim Troop. Gonna miss you. We've got a lot done. I'm really excited about this. Shoot, some of the things we got done. We got 4 new police cars. We got 4 on order. We got a SWAT van done. We're on order for a motorcycle cop, motorcycle. We fully fund all our positions. We got an extra lieutenant in the police department. I'm really excited about what we're seeing. We got, the energy is great. I mean, our parks are looking great, and the staff here are just awesome. And this is definitely an honor, and I look forward to it. Thank you, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you. Welcome, Dean. Council, any words that you would like to share? Other than we welcome you? Councilmember Cordova.
Dean, I just want to say to you that, and you and I have had this conversation, my vote had nothing to do with you as an individual. Your success is going to be the success of this city, and I'm 100% behind you in making sure that you have everything that you need from me as a council member to make that happen. My vote is only reflective of the decision made by the council to move so quickly into making a permanent offer as opposed to maybe making an interim offer. And again, I had that conversation with you, so I just want you to know that my support is with you now as potentially being the city manager and accepting this position. And so I do welcome you wholeheartedly, and you will have my support throughout the whole time.
And you do have council's 100% support, and we are just appreciative that you were interested and willing. Councilmember Ball.
I just want to say I'm really excited, and we've heard a lot of rhetoric over the last several years that wouldn't it be really nice to have somebody that actually lived and is raised or invested in Lompoc to actually lead our city, and I hope it works out, but we have a chance now. I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited to have the staff continue working hard and letting us know how we can come up with better ideas to make the city work even better. So congratulations, Dean.
All right. Welcome, and we'll move on to our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Joy Price will lead us in invocation, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Holy One, during this special time of year for so many different faith traditions, we thank you for all that you provide. The joy that we see on children's faces, the hearts that burn brightly for you in the dark of night, the gratitude that is expressed at small kindnesses. These are the reasons that we lift up our praise to you this evening. And yet, in the midst of the gladness, we see all those who fall to the margins in our society and acknowledge the pain that they feel as they are left behind. Oh God, let us remember that those who suffer are your special people. Empower us to lift them up, to bring them justice, and to break the bonds of poverty. Tonight we lift up to you your creation As the temperatures fall and the night lingers, remind us that each day we are here to serve as stewards, not exploiters of this beautiful planet. Show us how you would care for your creatures, that we may use our own hands to repair and heal that which we have broken. And show us how to love each other as only you can love. I thank you for all the leaders of this community. Though we may not always agree with one another, we all love Lompoc, and we pray that good things will come to its people. Give us your knowledge, your power, and your blessing as we go through about the business of living our lives in this hometown. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We had no presentations at any other event, and we have none tonight. So we will move on to a presentation by the County of Santa Barbara's Broadband Initiative, and I welcome those making the presentation to come to the microphone and introduce yourselves.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor and honorable council members. My name is Margie Kern. I'm the Executive Director of Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, commonly known as SBCAG. We are a council of governments under a joint powers agreement between the Santa Barbara County and all the cities in our region. We're responsible for distributing state and local and federal transportation funds, and sometimes we act as a forum to address regional and multi-jurisdictional policy issues. And so today I'm here to talk about one of those. Broadband and the lack of quality internet access has been a discussion point for many, many years. As you may have experienced and heard from your communities you served during the COVID-19 pandemic, this has become an urgent issue as more residents rely on their internet service to continue to work, go to school, and shop. The pandemic has made the digital divide in the underserved communities, including communities of color, rural communities, and senior residents, more apparent as work, commerce, health, and other economic services have moved online. Some residents are struggling to participate in this digital landscape as broadband services are unavailable to them due to the lack of either of affordability or infrastructure. So there's a need to expedite broadband infrastructure deployment and provide connectivity at an affordable rate to these underserved residents and communities. So over the past couple of months, funding opportunities have been announced from both the state and federal governments to provide better access to those who depend on broadband services. $65 billion from the federal government was approved a few weeks ago, and there's been also an allocation of $6 billion from the state of California. With this available funding forthcoming, SBCAG has expressed a desire to ensure that our region is prepared at a regional level to implement better broadband access to stakeholders in an effective and efficient manner. This past July, SBCAG formed an ad hoc committee, which your mayor was a member of, along with 4 other board members. The ad hoc committee recommended to the full board to support and encourage a formalization of a collaborative regional approach to developing a broadband strategic plan between SBCAG, the County of Santa Barbara, and the 8 incorporated cities. The SBCAG directed me to reach out to each of the cities and the county to request their participation in the development of this plan. Before we get into the actions that we are requesting from the council, I'd like to introduce Dr. Bill Simmons from the Broadband Consortium for the Pacific Coast, as he has more of the technical background of what we're proposing here today. And then I'll come back and talk about what the actions we're asking for at a future meeting. Thanks. Bill?
Good evening, council members, mayor. Just flying as technical backup here to Margie. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the consortia, the plans ahead, give you a little bit of background on broadband. We have a presentation that I'll just give you some talking points out of and just share with that. The Broadband Consortium has been around since 2014, and we've gone through we're funded by the California Public Utilities Commission. We've gone through 3 cycles of funding now since 2014, and we were established to talk about public utilities funding in rural areas and in communities of need. And that was what we were doing fine and dandy until COVID. And COVID kind of changed everything as it relates to broadband. Instead of dealing with little communities like Cuyama and focusing in on the communities of need, we found that all of our assumptions were wrong. We thought that broadband was really necessary in business parks for economic development. It is, but we never realized that in residences alone, when you have 2 parents teleworking and you have kids going to school, that you need a lot of capacity in the neighborhoods. And so it's not only the business parks at this point, it's everywhere. Broadband is a problem throughout. And that's why we're seeing so much in terms of attention, resources, and conversation and planning and strategies being developed. It's recognizing finally that broadband is the 4th utility. And there is a mandate in this state that says it's a time for broadband for all. There's a word they use in the tech community, it's called ubiquitous. That means no matter where you're at, what you have access. And broadband is one of those things that within the next few years, you can get access anywhere. That's the plan, and that's what, I learned a new word. I'd never heard the word tranche before. And now, we have tranches of funding that's showing up. I can only imagine a dump truck, and backing up with all the funds that are required. There's terms like middle mile. This is the fiber that connects communities, and that's very important. There's terms like last mile. That's the fiber that connects every home and every business. And then there's the whole digital equity and inclusion aspect of this, where the communities, the resources are going to be there for digital literacy. And working in the communities of need with the partners. And that's not something we can do. It's something that the communities are going to have to do with themselves and for themselves with the organizations that are already organically established here in the relationships which exist. The role of the consortium is to be the link to the funding resources. I'm paid by the California Public Utilities Commission. That is the organization in the state of California that is in the midst of rulemaking now in terms of the funds that have been assigned by the governor, the $6.5 billion, the funds coming from the federal government, $65 billion in terms of going out to the states, and the funds that already exist with all the other agencies as of today. Another term is shovel ready. Unless we go through this strategy, unless we go through this planning process, unless we start mapping the community, talking about here are the neighborhoods of need, here's a community network, here's the interconnects we're going to need as a region. How does that tie to Vandenberg, for example? They're looking at broadband providers for the spaceport. All of these things need to come into play as it relates to the planning process and the request for funds to be able to go and build this new infrastructure and utility. The role of the city, that's something that's going to be talked about as well. The analogy I like is it's very much like the transportation business. That's why SBCAG is such a great partner. We're not suggesting that the city go in the broadband business, but we are suggesting you own the roads. It's not about transport. It's not about being an ISP, but it is about broadband, fiber as an asset. In an infrastructure that the community can make available to any and all providers and let the providers come in and compete and have plenty of access for everybody. So one of the best, I'll finish with just sharing that we've been doing an awful lot of work with the Chumash over the last year or so. They received a grant for $50,000. The tribe did a strategy of its own. And from that grant, they've now gotten funding from the Public Utilities Commission. They've got requests into EDA. They've got requests into NTIA, the National Transportation Infrastructure Agency. And from that $50,000, they've been able to leverage it into $6.5, close to $7 million in terms of funding requests. That model, tied to the creation of a North County fiber loop for this portion of the county, needs to be regionalized. And that's what we're looking at doing with all the cities, the support of the cities and the County Board of Supervisors. That's what the request is about. That's what we're trying to do. And we look forward to helping your community create your own unique plan. So, Margie?
Thank you, Bill. So we're here to ask the city to participate. We want to develop a strategic plan that makes sense for Santa Barbara County and identifies the needs of all of our jurisdictions and prioritizes those needs and facilitates us applying for these funds as a region to get the job done and implement those as we move forward. But the first part is getting the plan. So that's why we're here today, is to work together to develop a strategic plan that identifies those priorities for broadband. I've been to each of the cities. You are my last city. We've gotten support from all the other cities, and the County of Santa Barbara started off by initiating $200,000 to this effort to kick it off. So with the remaining balance that we identified to complete this plan over the next 6 to 9 months is another $200,000. So we divvied up that cost amongst the cities by population. So the city of Lompoc's population share would be about $27,609. That's your share of 13.8% of the city population. So we also have a memorandum of understanding that we distributed to each of the cities, and some cities already acted on those and approved that, but I don't think that's on your agenda for today, so we'll have to put it on a future agenda. So I'm asking, we're here to answer any questions you have, and hopefully we can put this on a future agenda so we can move forward in starting the plan and getting the work done so we can apply for this funding.
Thank you. Councilmember Starbuck.
Are you guys prepared to make an offer and buy our Wi-Fi utility?
I think that's a future discussion, but
Today, no, because we haven't applied for the funding, but that could be included in the plan, that you have this infrastructure that you would like to see dealt with in a different manner. So I think, am I answering correctly? I'm like getting my reassurance from behind me. So that could be identified in the plan as an action item.
the idea is to not just have a regional plan, but assist those of us to also help identify within our cities what's lacking and what opportunities exist to be a part of the full plan. So it would help us develop a plan that we don't have and how we might also access the funds in partnership with
Absolutely.
a larger concept.
Yes.
And then I think the other clarification is that the SB-CAG is really looking at the middle mile. We're responsible for those last miles within our city, but that middle mile, we've needed ownership of that for a while. And you have stepped up, which I thank you. We haven't had a countywide organization really take hold of this, and I think SB-CAG is the right house for this. And I think it's really important that people understand we can only be as competitive and have more selections on internet if more fiber is laid and there's more opportunity for that competition to come in. Right now, it's a pay-to-play. And if Comcast comes in and lays all the lines, that's your only option, or if Verizon comes in. But this would open up the opportunity to build out infrastructure that allowed multiple agencies, private, public, a partnership to come in, and we could then access those middle miles within our city limits to make it go further and provide additional competition at various rates.
That's the goal.
Okay. And I say that because I did serve on this subcommittee, and that was one of the driving discussions that so many of us communities are talking about wanting to have more than one choice, two at most, and having a more economical and diverse selection that applies for all different socioeconomic levels, and the pandemic really proved that we didn't have that, and that it was only being done in a way that could be accommodated for a short time, but we saw the need for it to exist. And so it's really important that we work not only within our own community to address it, but in partnerships, the stronger voice, the getting the dollars at a higher level. So I really appreciate you guys doing this, and I hope council will take this up at a future time. Any other questions from council? Thank you very much, and we'll look to put this on a future agenda. Thank you. Before we move on, I would like to make the council request that we bring back the MOU and the proposal and identify where that source of revenue would come from, so we can have further discussion to contribute to and be a part of this. I would look for a second and a third.
I'll give you a second.
Thank you.
Third.
So, thank you. All right, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just 2 items tonight. I'm going to get to one of them in a second here, but the first one is the City of Lompoc's Utility Department, the FY22 Christmas Light Replacement Program. So if those that don't know about it, some have taken advantage of this, and it's a really good program. The City of Lompoc, I can't talk with this on, Utility Conservation Division is offering an LED Christmas light replacement program for all City of Lompoc electric customers. So both electric, residential, and commercial customers may exchange up to 4 incandescent, the old style Christmas lights, for new energy-saving LED Christmas light strings on a 1-for-1 basis. There's no cost for customers to participate in the program, as the program is funded through the budgeted Public Benefit Resources funds. All program participants will be entered into a weekly drawing during December to win an LED Christmas yard decoration. 3 Christmas yard decorations were donated by Home Depot to assist with the program. Home Depot's done a really nice job. They've let us even be in front of their building doing the swaps. Christmas light exchanges will be available during the following times and dates listed below. So we have one, it's the Lompoc Outdoor Community Market, which we're going to hear about in a minute, how great that is. That's on Saturdays. That'll be December 4th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lompoc City Hall here, Monday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with the exception of the days that we're going to be closed, 12/23 through 1/2, January 2nd, and January 17th. And then again, Lompoc Home Depot over on Ocean, Thursday and Friday from noon to 5 p.m., with the exception of December 23rd through January 2nd. The program is available to all customers or while the supply lasts. And they've been getting a really good turnout because you're getting a 1-for-1 exchange for the new bulbs. The other one, and I just, we have a very large economic driver here in the valley, and that's the military base, the Vandenberg Space Force. And once they became the Space Force base, they actually have been ramping up the number of military people that are living there or needing to live there, and the number of contractors on base as they continue to ramp up. So they're having the same problem we are in the city, and that's a housing shortage for all of their the military individuals. So they're experiencing the shortage on base as well as off base. If they don't have anything on base, then the people have to go off site to find something, and they're having to go farther and farther away. So as a base community, we need to do all we can to help our community partner. If anyone this is where I'm getting to. So if anyone owns a home in Lompoc or the surrounding communities and you're looking to rent out the home, if they could please contact the Vandenberg Military Housing Office. I'm going to have all this on the website too. You'll be doing a big help to our very own Space Force base. We'll place this contact information on the city's webpage for anyone who is interested in listing their rental property on the Vandenberg's base listing service. I'll read it off, but it's homes.mil, M-I-L for military, enables landlords and property managers to manage and share vital rental listings with their service members. Property managers or landlords simply need to create an account to get started, and the base is always in need of listings. For detailed instructions, feel free to reach out to the Military Housing Office. The number is 805-606-3434, or via email, and I'll read it, but it's going to be online, so it'll be easier, but it's 30ces.ceih@us.af.mil. So I'll have that on there, but they are in need. Just like the city of Lompoc needs more homes, the base is really in a position of needing more homes for all of their personnel. So I just want to put that out there. If you're renting a home, please look this up and think of the service individuals. And that was it.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager before we move on? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent calendar. We'll open the floor for public comment on consent calendar. That's not till later.
Deb Andrews, Mission Hills. I'd like to address number 4. I urge you to not comply with California Air Resources Board enrollment in low carbon fuel standard program. CARB has ignored the genocide potential of cannabis cultivation terpenes according to the Santa Barbara County 2017 Environmental Impact Report. Specific terpenes emitted in the cultivation of cannabis bind with human receptors in the nasal passages and bloodstream. CARB ignores air quality known to be hazardous to humans. What is their agenda? Their actions suggest to rob us blind and wipe us out. I urge you to not comply with CARB's request. Also, with the suggested SBCAG investment in broadband, you might want to research the Starlink satellite internet that will soon be activated. I don't know, but you may not need the broadband. It's worth the research.
So to continue, the floor is now open for public comment on consent calendar. The number to call is 805-875-8201, 805-875-8201. You're welcome to come to the podium and speak on any item on consent calendar at the moment. Did we receive any written comment for consent calendar, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am, nothing.
Thank you. And while we wait to see if there's a call due to the time delay, I'll go ahead and read. Consent calendar is considered to be routine and will be enacted after one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the council vote. Any items withdrawn from the consent calendar for separate discussion will be addressed immediately before the second oral communication near the end of the meeting. Seeing no one call in on consent calendar public comment, we will close that and move it back to the council. And do I have either an item to pull or a motion to accept? Councilmember Ball.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar as is.
Thank you.
I'll give you a second.
And Councilmember Vega seconds. Any other questions or concerns before we vote? Seeing none, let's vote. And that passes 5-0. And now we will have a staff presentation from our Parks and Rec Manager, Mario Guerrero Jr., to provide a status report on the Lompoc Outdoor Community Market.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and members of the public and staff. I'm Mario Guerrero, the Parks and Recreation Manager for the city, and tonight I'm happy to provide a presentation of the Lompoc Outdoor Community Market for the first 6 months of performance. As well, we wanted to display our new logo, and this will be the logo that will be our brand for the market. The Lompoc Outdoor Community Market was approved by City Council to operate by the City Parks and Recreation Division in January of 2021. Staff conducted outreach to vendors and marketing to make the market successful from the very first day of opening. The first Saturday of the market was held on April 17th, and the participation from both the vendor side and the community side was positive and continues then to be great. It has been well received by the community. After nearly 7 years without such a type of a community market, it was really embraced by the community. The Recreation Division organized and registered all the vendors, including the big and small booths, which included specialty goods, toys, local produce, arts and crafts, as well as food trucks and community informational booths. The Lompoc Outdoor Market has been now going for 34 Saturdays, and this report will cover the outcomes for the 26 Saturdays of operation. And for those of you who haven't been to the market yet, it's operated every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if you'd like to be a vendor, it's just easy as enough than to reach out to our Recreation Division office at 875-8100. The market is located at the downtown parking lot on I and Ocean Avenue, specifically the 200 West Ocean Avenue, and the map that depicts the parking lot, the vendor parking lot, and the market, the location. The first 6 months of operation have been successful. The performance period of April 17th through October 9th were the first 26 Saturdays of the market, and 6 of those Saturdays were completely sold out. And during that 6 month period, we have averaged 86% of the capacity, which exceeded our highest estimate presented to council back in January of 70% operational, the capacity goal. The 70 spaces of the market, even at capacity, we've been very successful with the 0 citizen concerned submitted through our online portal. In January, staff presented an estimated annual budget of just over $47,000 to operate the market. At the 6 month mark, we are 20% under that target for expenses associated with the operation. You can see that security was built in to the budget, but given our use of our part-time staff and the nature of the market, we haven't had that need to utilize outside security. But in the actuals below, I provided a scenario that if we did have to utilize outside the security, we would still be below our target expenditures by 12% at the mid-year operational period. In January, staff presented an estimated annual budget of 50% occupancy and 70% occupancy. Using the 70% occupancy rate budgeted revenue estimates, the market is exceeding budgeted revenues at the mid-cycle point by 10%. This is taken into account then that we provided 9 nonprofits during the reporting period with 42 reservation sites for community benefit efforts, as well as providing in town the brick and mortar businesses a 50% discount. In addition, if a vendor books 4 consecutive dates, they are provided a 20% discount, and that has been very popular with the vendors. In conclusion, the first 6 months of the Lompoc Outdoor Market has been extremely successful from a budgetary performance standpoint, exceeding the estimated 1-year surplus at the mid-year point. After 1 year, the realized surplus can be reinvested into the market or budgeted for future years. Additional performance measure of successes are coming from the community's enjoyment and participation in the market, as well as the businesses, the community's participation as well. Having the market has provided an additional resource for the community for community outreach and the solicitation of public input for city processes as well as projects. And we've been very, very happy with the market. It's been a true the team effort from the Rec Division. This concludes the presentation of the Lompoc Outdoor, the community market for the first 6 months, and available for any questions.
Any questions for Mario? Councilmember Ball?
First off, I just want to say congratulations on working so hard and the entire staff that's out there putting this together. One of our requests, my personal request, is you guys have to crush it, and in many measurables, you guys are doing that. As you move forward into the next year, it looks like there's money that could have been spent on marketing that wasn't. When's the last time that we sold out? Are we seeing a trend going away from that? And do we need to put more into marketing to make sure that we're, especially during some of the slower, more wintry months, that we're getting a good crowd there? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have been on the radio, and we have been doing a lot of the social media boostings, but with our new logo, we're planning to kind of brand the market more and get some swag, some hats and shirts, and be able to get the word out there a little bit more. So that's the plan. With the time of the year, it's been the declining a little, but we're still over that 70% mark in the last 8 weeks. So during the winter time, we do expect a little bit of a decline, but it should pick up again during the hotter months.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you, and thank you to all the staff that have adjusted to working on the weekends and rotating through to provide not only the security, but just having staff present so that we can be successful. I know that makes a difference, and I know that the community is also taking advantage of approaching city staff and sharing other ideas and concepts. A few times I've been out there, it's been nice to be able to interact and connect with the public again. So thank you for bringing it forward. Thank you for managing it so efficiently, and to see that it's bringing a return on investment better than we expected. So really appreciate that. Any other questions for Mario?
If I can just say the one thing, we are in need of staffing on the weekends, so
Okay.
Just to put that out in
Sure.
the public.
So if there's
people
somebody
would
who
like a
wants-
part-time job on Saturdays, please feel free to give us a call at 875-8100, and we can kind of explain our operations, and always looking for weekend staff.
Excellent time to make the plug, absolutely. So if you're looking for a little part-time income, you're retired or you're a student and you want to, contribute and get paid for it, it's a win-win. It's a great day, and lots of interesting things happen and lots of interesting things there. So please consider it. Appreciate it. All right, we'll put that out also on social media.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We will now open the floor for oral communications on any item that is not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes. 805-875-8201. 805-875-8201 is the number to call in if you'd like to speak. The floor is open.
Deb Andrews, Mission Hills. I urge you to not comply with harmful mandates. Masks do not prevent infection. Masks are detrimental to health. Dr. Reinhold Fulmick is involved with Nuremberg Trials 2.0. Dr. Fulmick is a practicing attorney in California and Germany. I'll quote from Dr. Fulmick. The pandemic is a crime. We have the evidence. It is a planned criminal operation. It is the worst crime ever committed against humanity. All measures, all methods used do not rest on a solid scientific basis. Under the Nuremberg Code, Article 6, Section 3, no government can mandate or force medical treatment without individuals' consent. Violations of the Nuremberg Code are classified as crimes against humanity and carry a maximum penalty of death. There is no exemption from liability if officials acted intentionally to inflict harm. To quote Dr. Fulmick, we have the evidence, prepare for change. Governor Newsom is connected to the deaths of 600 children who contracted fatal staph infections from wearing masks. Governor Newsom's military tribunal is scheduled for December 18th, which suggests he may be hung by Christmas. I urge you once again to discontinue your complicity in these crimes against humanity.
Did we receive any written public comment, Madam Clerk?
You did. You received an email from Mr. Ron Fink regarding the recently approved cannabis grow just outside of our city limits. That was provided to council. It is out in the front in the lobby and on our website. You received a letter from the YMCA that is also out in the lobby and placed on the website. I'm sorry, I don't think I actually forwarded that to you guys.
And its topic was?
Topic is just a review of the Lompoc YMCA
So an annual
items,
review?
yes.
Yeah, okay. Their annual review letter. Got it.
Annual review letter, yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
And that was it.
Okay, and you'll put a copy of that in our box?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right, we appear to have a call.
I wanted to thank the City Council for considering the future of broadband. That's so important. I hadn't even considered the possibility. Thank you. Thank you for looking out for the city. Thank you for your service. Bye-bye.
No more calls? All right, so we will close oral communications and bring it back to our agenda. Our next agenda is a council request. Item number 7, discussion of potential revisions to the appointment method for city commissions. And we have our city attorney to present.
Mayor and members of the council, at the last council meeting, there was a council request to bring back an item to discuss potential revisions to the city's procedural rules for method of appointing city commissioners. To the 6 commissions: Planning Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, Utility Commission, Beautification and Appearance Commission, Public Safety Commission, and Human Services Commission, that the council recently, in December 2020, decided to adopt a rule for that said each of your appointees to those commissions must come from your district, your electoral district, and the mayors, of course, are at large, because the mayor is elected at large. I took a look at the municipal code to consider some potential options. There is one option to address these extended vacancies that have occurred on some of those commissions. It's already in the municipal code, and that rule states that if a council member has not made a nomination for their appointee on a certain commission for 6 consecutive city council meetings, then the mayor or any other council member can nominate someone from that district for the seat. And if the nominee is then approved by a majority of the council, then that person can be nominated. So that is one tool that already exists in the code for the council to address some of these extended vacancies. On page 2 of your staff report are other options that would involve amendments to the rules that we would have to bring back at a future meeting if you wanted to give direction to do any of these. And I put 5 potential options there as amendments to our rules that you could do. But of course, the sky is the limit with the number of options that there are. But the council is free to choose any that you like. Just the ones that were proposed in the staff report here are, if no nomination has been made for 6 consecutive city council meetings, then that council member can nominate from any district. Or, number 2, if no eligible candidate has filed an application for the commission seat within 90 days after the vacancy, then that council member for that seat could nominate from any district for that seat. Or another option, the third option, if the council member hasn't made a nomination for 6 consecutive council meetings, then the mayor or any council member could nominate from any district to fill that seat. The fourth option, if nobody files an application to fill the vacancy within 90 days after the vacancy, then that council member could nominate from any district for a temporary commissioner term of, say, 3 months. And then after that 3 months is up, that same commissioner wouldn't be able to be reappointed to another temporary term. It would have to be a different person appointed. Or then the fifth option is that each of you would have one of your 6 appointments that could come from outside of your district. It could be 2 of your appointments, whatever number you wanted. But that was just an idea. And the council is, of course, free to suggest any other options for changing your rules for appointments to commissions. That concludes the staff report, and I'm available for questions.
All right. So I'd like to remind the council, this is the time to ask questions. We should avoid stating where we stand on any one thing until we've heard from the public comment on this. So does anyone have any questions for City Attorney? Councilmember Vega.
Jeff, the rule that has a 6-meeting vacancy, it seems like that's an extensive amount of time. I'm not sure where that came from. It seems like any vacancy that's made with a commission is if you were to miss 3 meetings, unexcused meetings, you would also be alienated from a committee. I know we're talking about just a vacancy, but the 6 months, that's kind of a long time. I wonder if that could be amended, or at least a question, for council so they can hear that. Could that length of time be shortened?
Yes, you could amend that rule. It's not 6 months, but it's 6 consecutive council meetings. So that would be 3 months, 3 months' time. But yes, you could amend that to make it shorter.
I got you. And like I say, I was just trying to find some consistency on 3 unexcused absences should be probably a benchmark. But then again, with a vacancy, it's a little different. We'd like to be a little bit more aggressive about filling the committees and commissions so that other people don't lose their gist on wanting to be a part of it. So, anyway, that's my question.
To clarify his question, what our handbook says for commissioners is if they miss 3 consecutive meetings unexcused, then they are removed. And those meetings often are monthly. And our city council, not our city, our municipal code says 6 council meetings of vacancies, which is ultimately the equality of the 3 months of a commissioner missing. So they are technically equitable currently.
That's true, they're both 3 months.
If the commission meets once a month.
That's right.
Okay. You did present that we have a methodology in place, and we just haven't executed on it, correct? We hadn't moved there. Because we switched to districts, we really took our time trying to allow for that. So again, it's our choice to enforce that 6-meeting vacancy, and we chose to let it go for a while. And that's okay. Violating our own municipal code along those lines doesn't get us in trouble.
It says that you can appoint that way. It doesn't say that you must.
Right.
That's right.
Okay. Just trying to make sure we haven't done anything inappropriate while we waited to see if we could fill the spaces based on council member appointment. Any other questions before we move to public comment? Seeing none, we will open the floor for public comment. The number to call is 805-875-8201, 805-8201. The floor is open in council. Did we have any written communication on this item?
No, ma'am, nothing.
Thank you. We will give the phone a little bit of time due to the time delay between speaking of it and it actually being broadcast, so that others have the opportunity to call in if they'd like. And for those of you who are new to this, I keep talking because we also have a separate recording that assists our city clerk in maintaining the notes. And if there's a dead silence for more than 30 seconds, it turns itself off, and we don't want to do that. We like to make our city clerk's job as easy as possible, given how often we make it difficult. All right, so I think I filled 30 seconds, and I have not seen the phone ring, and no one has come to the podium, so we will close public communication on this and bring it back to council. Before I yield the floor to Councilmember Starbuck, I would like for us to consider utilizing the existing municipal code and potentially seeing if we can fill them in January through that process of all of us looking to our contacts and seeing if we know somebody in a district that we could bring it forward and do it hopefully maybe at the January 18th meeting or the first meeting in February. But I think we should at least employ the methodology that already exists, and if it doesn't work in 2 months' time, then potentially make some changes to fill it. But since it says mayor or any council member make a nomination for that seat, I think several of us have relationships in the districts and might be able to recruit and assist our fellow council members with filling that position. Councilmember Starbuck.
Well, a couple of things. You're right, it hasn't worked. I've had people approach and apply, but not in my district. So it seems unfair to me that I would allow, or that the council would allow yourselves to appoint for my appointments. The option that appears to work the best here would be if I can't fill the position, you know, if no nomination has been made, nobody in my district is interested, that I should be allowed to go outside my district. It's for the good of the city, and it still is a representation of people in the city, just not my district. One guy was across the street in District 2. It just makes sense that if you can't fill it within your district, then go ahead and go outside your district. If nobody ran in District 1 for a council seat, how do you fill a council seat? Do you let the council appoint the next council member?
I believe we would go through an appointment process.
Well, that was just a facetious thing, but there is an appointment process. But to have the council appoint my Parks and Rec person is ridiculous when I can find a Parks and Rec person within the city.
Okay. Councilmember Vega.
Yeah, to leave it the same would potentially be the same. I think that option 4 here would be more on what I was thinking when I brought this council request here would be to allow us to go outside our district to appoint, because I think by letting someone else appoint in our district, it doesn't follow exactly what the intent was for districts. I think what I'd like to do, though, is at least allow us to go outside the district to temporarily at least fill these positions until someone possibly within the district wants to go, and then we can do. So I think option 4 is more of where I was thinking that would probably solve the problem. That would allow us to appoint to our own commission and commission within our commission and find someone. I think we should be able to do that. I think if we can go outside our district, I think there shouldn't be an issue. I think the issue is, what's that? I'm sorry. But yes, so you have, so there's a couple of options here that are worth, but I would rather us allow the people that are supposed to appoint in the district to do it instead of being overridden by the council or the mayor. We just need a little bit of, we just need a little bit of elasticity to allow us to be able to fill those positions.
All right. Anybody else want to contribute to the discussion? Councilmember Ball.
I'm going to keep it pretty general. I would just say it's like our goal for having committees and commissions is to have them fully filled and for them to function, and ideally to take on some really tough issues and find consensus and then edify council from their work. So I think for me, I'm pretty flexible. I'm open. I'd love to see these commissions and committees functioning. I would hope that those that are unable to fill a position within their district have done their due diligence. I'm assuming they have to find someone. But I'm flexible. I think that at the end of the day, we need these things to work or not have them at all. So that's my 2 cents.
Councilmember Cordova.
I think, to be fair, though, when this was put together, we also went right into COVID, and I think part of the reason why we haven't been able to fill is because of the whole COVID effect on people perhaps maybe not wanting to participate or not wanting to come into a group or join something necessarily right now. So I don't think that the system that this council decided and went over and we discussed this till we were blue in the face, it felt like. I don't think that it didn't work because it just didn't work. It didn't work because unfortunately we were met with COVID. Giving it the opportunity to actually use it and actually do it would be something different, that then we could say that it doesn't make sense or it doesn't work. But as of right now, I would not mind sticking to what we had already decided because we worked on it as a council. I don't know, I think there's vacancies on all, maybe perhaps on all the commissions from any given council member. So I'm not sure. I have 2 vacancies that I haven't been able to fill, but I don't know that it's been because of the fact that it's not working. I think it's just, like I said, because I think that maybe people haven't been as wanting to participate due to COVID, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so having heard everybody, I want to try and be as accommodating as possible, but also not go off the rails and not truly move to district appointments. So here's my proposal that I will make into a motion, is that we allow the item number 4, as well as combine item number 5 into it, so that you only get to use that for one of your appointments, so that we're still striving towards it, and that with these 2 items as part of the change, that first priority be given no matter what to a district applicant. So when this comes back and we vote on it and we agree on it to say if no eligible candidate files an application within 90 days after a vacancy, then allow that council member to nominate from any district for a temporary commissioner term of 3 months, and that commissioner cannot be reappointed to the seat after the temporary term expires, followed by allowing each council member to make 1 appointment from outside the council member's district. So if you have 4 openings, only 1 of those gets to use the number 4 option. And finally, added to that is if any applicant comes forward from the district, they supersede the change of 4 and 5. So that our goal is still applying from the network. So we reopen the application process. You have somebody you want to appoint. That night or that week when we get our packet, if there's a District 2 in it, you should give District 2 the appointment and priority over your recommendation because you finally have a District 2. So that's my recommendation, is to accept 4 and 5 as a potential solution, but always making a district appointment a priority over a non-district appointee. Councilmember Vega.
Question, Mayor.
Yeah.
We have quite a few commissions, okay? So if we only have 1 appointment, what if we're having, issues with other committees just all we're trying to do is fill them,
Oh, I know,
okay? So
I
it's
know.
pretty simple. There shouldn't be a lot of resistance to filling our commissions. So I'm not sure what the restriction is, okay, or why the restriction would be there, because maybe 1 appointment per commission if you need it. But what if we need to exercise it for more than 1 commission, is my question, okay?
Sure,
You may have beautification, you may have park and recs, like we probably do have, which is real. So I would hate to, anyway.
So
I'd
you'd
li-
rather
I'd
not
like to
have,
see us-
you'd rather not have 5 included?
Well, yeah, because the way it's structured, the 1 would be a restrictive add-on, basically, but unless there's a way that we can think of that would, address it, but yeah. I think the restriction on 1, when you might be having multiple issues, Councilwoman Cordova mentioned, hey, there may be COVID, it may not be, but I think there's a couple of council people up here that have more than 1 commission with vacancies here. So I don't want to shortchange ourselves, so.
Okay, so you're okay with 4.
I'm okay with 4.
And would you be okay with the addition that if you got an applicant in the same window that you're bringing something forward, if another applicant put in that's from District 2 and your applicant isn't, would you be okay looking and appointing the District 2 applicant over your recommendation?
I think so, okay? The only thing that does, though, it would mean District 2 person, whether, anyway, I got you. Whether you appointed them or not.
Again, the appointments aren't supposed to be alignment with ourselves. They're to be a voice for that district and to assist us with understanding those neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
So we're not making appointments just based on this person agrees with me and helps drive some sort of agenda. What we're really looking for is for that district to have one more voice and to assist us with that voice,
Yeah.
because we can't be everywhere at once.
And I can agree with that,
Okay.
okay? So, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
I would say that if you have someone in the district,
Yeah.
that would supersede
So-
any temporary appointment.
Okay, so we open it up, we take applications, you have somebody you want to appoint who's non-district, you can do that for 3 months and can't reappoint them after that term expires, but at the same time, as we're considering those, if somebody comes forward from your district as part of that process, they get priority over your appointment.
Okay, now, let's have this discussion possibly, okay?
Sure.
They cannot be reappointed after 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
whether you have a candidate or not, so it leaves a vacancy again, okay?
Right.
And I'm not sure what that mentality entails, okay? What if you don't have someone that steps up? What do we do then? Do we leave a vacancy again because we made a rule that,
What if we revert to mayor or another council member makes a nomination to help you fill that position?
it just still hasn't worked, so I get you.
So I'm only willing to go as far as introducing 4 with the option of the priority given to a district applicant over a non-district applicant.
See, I'm okay with everything, but I'm just still not an advocate of the mayor overriding one and having
Oh,
one of my
I'm not,
appointments, okay? Because it's an unfair advantage to the mayor also to be able to put everything, and as you know, in politics, you can say it doesn't matter, but it matters, okay? It matters who they report to, and I would hate to have a commission and have everybody reporting to the mayor, and I'm sitting here looking like a pigeon.
It doesn't say mayor. The code says the mayor or any other council member can make a nomination for that seat.
Oh, I got
And so what it's saying is, maybe Councilmember Cordova knows somebody in District 2 that you don't know, that she's recruited that for a position on, beautification or whatever it is, and they're willing to serve, she can make that nomination and assist you in filling that. That's what it's saying. It's not saying the mayor gets to dictate, because our municipal code says mayor or any other council member can make a nomination for
I
that
got you.
seat,
But
instead
here-
of just you making it.
Yeah, I got you. Here in the real world, though, when you go to a commission meeting, it'll say, hey, appointed by council member so-and-so, okay? So what would we have? We'd have the mayor appointing 2 people, and then they would say appointed by the mayor twice. You know what I'm saying? No, so they would generally be answering to you if you were appointing them, okay? As far as questions, answers, or anything moving forward.
I wouldn't see it that way at all.
Well, that's
because
the way the commissions are structured.
Right, but the position is for District 2, so that relationship would be with you and on you to develop with that appointee. I would just be bringing forward a suggestion because it's someone who wants to serve and they happen to live in your district. So I will give you a for instance. When we first started this, there were individuals from District 2 that you chose not to appoint, and when you chose not to appoint them, I went ahead and appointed them. So they are both advocating for District 2 when they're on the dais, as well as the community at large because they're serving as my appointee. So again, there is that balance of, even though one of us might make a suggestion, they're your appointee if it's open. If I have an opening, you could make a nomination for an at-large position for my open positions. So again, I'm looking for a compromise and yet not to destroy what we've put in place, because COVID has had an impact on it, and there are individuals that want to serve but aren't comfortable coming out yet. And while we have accommodated and said you can have your meetings via Zoom, many people also aren't, fully into the technology or have all the tools to Zoom in and have a
Again,
meeting.
I think that if there's a way that we can do it where someone isn't alienated after 3 months, Mayor, I think that would feel a little bit better, because we may need a little bit more time to recruit, and anyway, that's my only issue. 4 works. and I understand. But,
Okay.
you know, you just mentioned something that it is via Zoom also, so the COVID really isn't a really good excuse, okay? It's not really a good excuse saying why people don't want to be involved, because I am a member and involved with many, many meetings via computer.
Sure, but I would also remind you, we had a broadband presentation, and not everybody has access at home or the type of computers or cell phones that can accommodate. So, you know, there is that
And
consideration.
again, I appreciate everything we're doing, and I appreciate your help.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to fill a commission, okay? And I want to feel good about it, and I want to make sure that I'm doing my part, because there is a responsibility to the commissioners, and I want to make sure I'm there. So if I attend a meeting, I'd like to make sure that we're all connected, so that, and do my part.
Sure.
So it's really simple. It's really simple. It's not like we're electing someone to run for office or something.
Well, sometimes commissioners become...
Sometimes it is a platform, and that's why I don't want there to be an unfair advantage.
Which is why it's important to get district representation and help cultivate potential new council members in case one of us doesn't want to run anymore. All right, so my recommendation on the floor right now is to add item 4 as is, with the priority given to a district candidate first. Councilmember Ball.
Yeah, I was just, for a second there, I was just, I think I talked myself out of something, to be honest with you. But looking back at number 4, ideally, but I understand the district area, and I know this is a weird one, but say that somebody is temporarily in there for 90 days, and they're not from that district, but they're an amazing fit. They're a great fit for that commission. So again, this system would have us say, well, I'm sorry that your time's up, and we've got to go find someone else. And I get that too. It's a tough one, but I wish there was a way to thread the needle between 4 and 5, or to give an opportunity or an openness for us to benefit from a good person in that seat. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible with this setup.
Councilmember Cordova.
Well, you have a motion on the floor, correct? I do. I was hoping to get a compromise. That I was listening to the conversation going back and forth, and I was hoping to get a compromise. I do see a compromise with number 4, which is what Councilmember Vega wanted, number 4. And just by attaching to that and saying, you know, to give, I guess, consideration or priority to anyone coming in from that district, I think that is reasonable, and that is an accommodation to bring it together. So I will second it if that moves it forward, but of course the council.
Well, it moves it forward to a vote. So the motion and the second on the floor at the moment is to adapt and put item 4 as the addition to our code, or change to our code, not addition, change to our code, with the priority given to any applicant that comes in from the district is the one appointed over a non-commission vacancy at the same time. City Clerk, you look like you
I just want to confirm 90 days means 90 calendar days.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the motion on the floor, and the second, Councilmember Vega.
You know, Mayor, I have one more question,
Sure.
if you don't mind, okay?
Yeah, no.
Number 4 would be great if, you know, with the fact that if someone from your district takes precedence over that, my issue is having it expire in 3 months. Is there a way of doing it where we don't have to let it expire until you have a candidate, so that commission doesn't have a vacancy? I mean, that would be an easy compromise for me, okay? As soon as someone signs up, whether it's from you or somebody else, and somebody puts an application in, we're obligated to take that, to put that appointee in because they are in our district, and then that would alienate, that we wouldn't have to alienate anybody after 3 months without having someone in that position.
So my only fear with that is that the position doesn't open up, and you have to ask that person to step down, and will you do that? I mean, I know you're saying you will right now, but by not putting some sort of limitation on it so that it reopens the position to that district, are you comfortable with saying, I now have a District 2 applicant, and that you're actively hunting for that, and we'll go back to this person and say, it's been a year, but now I have a District 2 person, so you need to step down so I can appoint
In
you.
that scenario, yes. You know, in a normal scenario where you have multiple people applying, okay, in the beginning, right? And you still should have a choice, of course, you have a choice. Under that scenario, of course, I mean, that would keep us from alienating someone, because Councilmember Ball mentioned, We may have some stellar people that are willing to help a little bit on a longer term. Why would we want to let them out of there if we don't have anybody there yet? So yes, okay? In other words, I'm saying if you could compromise with me on that one, I think that would solve the issue.
How about instead of just open end, given we're coming out of COVID and given, you know, we want to try and get to district representation, no more than a year. Instead of saying 3 months, say no more than a year, because that should give us plenty of time to fill those positions. We've had a year, it's been a difficult year, it's difficult to fill when it's hard to get out and meet people, but things are opening up. So what if instead of saying 3 months, we say no more than a year?
Would council have the option after a year to bring this back to see if council
Absolutely, we
wants
always
to
have the
allow them
option,
to
yeah.
serve more?
We always have the option.
Is that an option there? Because Councilwoman Cordova may have somebody there that's working out pretty well. You
Right,
know, what
no.
if she doesn't? What if we bring it back after a year and we say, hey, if these people still want to serve and we, you know, for some reason, we shouldn't have a problem filling it. I agree with you. But what if? You know what I mean? What if?
Well,
What if she
again-
wants to keep her commissioner after a year and you know what? Hey, it's all working regardless of the number of districts. Why not? You know, but it comes back to us after a year.
I could see that.
She would have to make the motion, whoever it is, to
Right,
keep that
right.
person, okay?
So the adjustment to this would be commissioner term for no more than a year, again with priority as soon as you get a District 2 representative, they would be appointed. And if you wanted to continue that appointment, council would have to reconsider it as a whole.
That'd be perfect, okay?
Councilmember Cordova.
So are you making the change?
That's why I'm making the suggested change to see if you would be amenable to it.
I will be, and I think that Councilmember Vega's requests and his concerns are valid.
Okay. Councilmember Ball.
I think that sounds like a very fair compromise. Again, our goal is to get these commissions working and functioning and helping out council. We need the help.
Okay. You're looking for clarity?
I just want to confirm what you're saying is 12 months after the appointment.
Yeah.
No more than 12 months after the date of the appointment.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, city attorney.
Hopefully, final clarification. So are you also saying that if you've appointed this temporary commissioner for no more than a year, if a person files an application to be on that commission that's from the district in question during that year, then automatically that person who filed the application will be up for a vote for appointment?
Absolutely.
And it must be approved, or the council could still vote no and keep the temporary?
We can always vote no. I mean, literally at any time, we can, you know, when we put a nominee forward currently, any of us can vote no against it. So
Okay.
there's always the opportunity to still vote no. So we don't change that. But yeah, I think, you know, given that leeway, that should have automatically be brought forward, and that individual, whatever district it is, should make that nomination. And if it passes, pull the individual off that is currently non-district. And if it fails because council as a whole voted against it, that's normally what happens anyway.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, I also see my city clerk's light back.
One more. So that would then require that the vacancy notices still remain up if there's a temporary vacancy, correct?
Right, because this is just a temporary fill.
Okay.
So maintaining the fact that the district appointment is still open because a non-district person's holding it would help us always be able to recruit for that. Or if we meet somebody in the community and say, I really want to get involved, and we say, what district do you live in? And they say District 1, and you go, are you interested in? Please go talk to Councilmember Cordova. Here's an application.
I'm just imagining what it's going to look
Sure.
like. That's it, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've just been flooded with all these applications currently, though, right? There's always that potential, right? All right, so we have had the motion amended and seconded for the amendment of no more than 12 months, and if a district appointment comes through, it will be given priority for a vote and hopefully accepted. And we will leave those positions open to collect those applications because these are only temporary fills. Any other questions or concerns? That's good? All right. Any other questions by council? All right, let's vote. And that passes 4-1. All right. We are on to the final agenda item, but what will be a potentially intense discussion because this is the first time we've had this kind of luck. So this is new business, preliminary update for fiscal year 2021, annual comprehensive financial report, and budget workshop for fiscal year 2021-23 reserves and possible future commitments. And we have our current Management Services Director and future City Manager, Dean Albro, to make the presentation.
Thank you. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the ARPA funds and how you utilize those. Talk a little bit about the general fund actual numbers, which would be from July to June 30th, 2021. Then I'll talk a little bit about our fund balance reserve policy, and then hopefully talk about some one-time expenditures that we might be able to do. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it over to Christy Donnelly. She's our Financial Services Manager, and she can talk about the ARPA.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Steve. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan Act, otherwise known as ARPA. Just a small little thing that has been sitting in the background for a few months. Let's go ahead and dive in. So just some of the basics about ARPA. First, it was a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan that was enacted by the federal government on March 11th. Of that, $350 billion was allocated to states and local governments. That portion is known as the CSL-FRF. It's a very long title. When I'm talking on this presentation tonight, that section is what we're talking about, the $350 billion CSL-FRF. That's the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. Those funds are to be used on covered expenses that incurred starting March 3rd of this year through the end of 2024. So it gives us about 4 years to spend all that money. So when it first came out, we all thought, this is great, we're going to get a bunch of money and no strings attached. And then on May 10th, the U.S. Treasury came out with the interim final rule. And that story changed because it is a very long, complex, and I think the biggest piece of that is that it's ambiguous because even some of the smartest people that I have had the privilege to work with are still getting their heads wrapped around it. And so we've spent a lot of time poring over these documents, the interim final rule, and then about a month later they came out with the compliance report. That is the report where I think each of you received this piece of paper, the Appendix 1 expenditure categories. And it's also in the lobby for any of the anybody who's here tonight. This lists out 66 different categories that we could potentially use the monies on. So at least it gave us some guidance. But it is a lot to look through. And then we also have the frequently asked questions, which is just about as long as the report itself. And it's updated periodically. The reason I point these things out, these are the 3 items here, all printed out, is because as of right now, the U.S. Treasury has not released the final rule. And so these 3 items, the interim final rule, the compliance report, and the frequently asked questions together are considered binding until the final rule is released. So this is what we're following. Specifically for the city of Lompoc, we are an entitlement city, which means that we got the money directly from the U.S. Treasury, which was good. It does, though, come with additional reporting requirements. Our total allocation will be $12.9 million. That is going to be drawn down over 2 years. The first half of that, 6.45 million, was received by the city on May 28th. Staff has identified covered reimbursements of $4.08 million that is going to be reported on the fiscal year 2021 financials with the end date of June 30th, 2021. We are currently working on those. When we were looking through all of these options for potential uses of the ARPA funds, we looked at a lot of different possibilities. Some of them ended up being, we were ineligible, like the revenue loss reimbursement. Some of them, like the ARPA administrative expenses, the water and sewer infrastructure, are items that are still possible, but we have tabled them because of the fact that one particular item, number 1.9, kind of rose to the surface as being the best option. So 1.9 reads, the payroll costs for public health, safety, and other public sector staff responding to COVID-19. So we were able to apply for reimbursement for costs incurred due to COVID-19 response. That would be payroll costs for the police, fire, our custodial staff, and our safety officer. That would be, at this point, we have submitted those reimbursements at 4.08 million is the amounts from March 3rd to June 30th. So when we were evaluating the options, we looked at several different things, but these were kind of four of our main considerations. One thing that you're going to learn about me is that I am a rule follower. And I think it's very important that we make sure that we are following compliance and that we were in line with all of the rules that were listed here. And so that was checked off with 1.9. Flexibility of use, were there strings attached? Can we spend the money the way that the city needs? And that was checked. Reporting requirements, are we going to get buried in paperwork? Every single one of these items on this list has different reporting requirements. Some of them very cumbersome, some of them not as much. And in this case, in 1.9, there were reporting requirements were such that we did not have to do any reporting that we didn't already have. And finally, what kind of staff hours were needed to manage the project? Were we going to have to hire specific additional staff just to manage the administrative load? And in this case, we did not. I want to assure you that we did our due diligence. We scoured all of the documentations and trainings that went to every training we could get our hands on. We sought input from multiple experts in the field. We worked with the police and fire chiefs. Thank you very much, chiefs, and the police and fire departments to confirm their time and activity spent on the COVID-19 response. We conferred with our independent audit firm. It is important that it's not just our interpretation of the rules, but that our auditors agree. And our auditors are currently auditing our fiscal year 2021 financials. We expect what's commonly called a clean audit report here, possibly in as early as a week. So what's the bottom line? We got 4.08 million reimbursed to us as of June 30th. Those reporting requirements have already been met. What that has done is released that same amount of funding from the general fund, or to the general fund. And the piece that I want to emphasize is that all guidance that we've received from GFOA and other sources is the importance that the spending must be done on one-time expenditures. This is one-time money, and we are grateful for that infusion. It's going to help our city turn the corner, and I think it's going to be great for us, but we need to make sure that we are investing it in a way that is one-time in nature. And that's all I have. I want to say thank you I want to thank specifically Erin Keller. She has been a vital working on this with me. And I also want to thank Marcy Webb, who has helped tremendously with pulling together all of the payroll reporting. And I'm going to turn this back over to Dean. He's going to talk a little bit more now about the fund balance.
And thank you and to the staff. I know you've been sitting in on every webinar, phone call, training, reading every document to get us to this point. So thank you, and thank staff for that.
Yeah, her and Erin Keller just did an outstanding job researching this. There was a ton of work. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about our actuals, our budget to actuals. You can see there at the very first one there, the original budget, you can see that we predicted that we would have positive $15,000. Didn't come out that way. Came out a lot better. We ended up with a positive $8 million, almost $8.1 million. And I wanted to demonstrate there at the bottom, you'll see the one-time revenues, the ARPA funds that Christy was talking about, and there was a little bit of the COVID-19 economic relief. So if we didn't get all that money, we would have had a surplus of 3.6 million, almost 3.7 million. So that's a good number to know that that's what our sustainable amount would have been if this didn't happen. So just to go through our revenue streams, our taxes ended up being with a positive variance. We had pretty good taxes, about 5.8 million, a positive variance of over $500,000. If you look at our transaction tax, or our Measure I 2020 district tax, something that's worth explaining is the sales tax, the Bradley Burns sales tax. If you were to go buy a vehicle, let's say in Buellton, that Bradley Burns tax would actually go to Buellton. However, since this is a district tax, it's a destination tax. So when you take it and you register at your house, we would actually get the Measure I money. So you can see we actually got quite a bit more than our sales tax. And I think that's going to be indicative of what we'll see in future budgets, to the tune of about $800,000 to $1 million more per year. You can see that our TOT was down around 800,000, not surprising with what was going on. Cannabis ended up coming out about 1.7 million. We predicted 550,000. So, and that was 2 years ago. We didn't know how many industries or people would be doing it. So it's good to see. It's a good revenue stream. Not too surprising to see that business licenses were down about 80,000. A lot of people not willing to make a go at a business right now. And there's the number that we're talking about that came from the ARPA monies that came from other agencies. And we can see there that that's indicative of what happened to the Parks and Rec. They just slowed down a little bit. And the bottom one, you'll see the streets and roads. That's offset by our expenditures also coming in lower. So we're trying to fix that in the next budget cycle. For the expenditures, I wanted to show both the original and final budget, give you an idea of what it looks like. General government came in good, 132 positive. Planning, they have a positive 256,000 there, but that's going to be ongoing. That's a grant they got that'll be rolled over probably the next year if they don't finish it this year. Building did really well. Police did really well. Fire, that's not surprising. We had a BC that wasn't funded, and we didn't fund the overtime as much as what we did in the next budget cycle. And then you'll see that the Parks and Rec did pretty good at holding their expenditures down since the revenues were lower as well. The non-departmental there, that's the grant, the feasibility grant we're doing with the base. That'll continue, so if we don't use that money, we'll roll over and we'll keep using that until we use up the grant. And you can see the streets is about the same. And the library, I love the library. You guys always get contributions, you get money given to you guys, they get grants, they just do such a great job. Like I said, the streets is offset. And this is the transfer that we did out for the patrol cars we bought last year. We paid the fleet fund offs on that transaction right there. This is the best graph I've ever presented to you guys ever. I don't know, this is our fund balance. You know, we have 8.7 million as a fund balance. You can see where we would look like last year right there, and that is actually obligated money that has just had to be used for capital. So this is all, we were out of money completely, so this is all reserves now. We ended up being about 21%, and our goal, our optimal goal is 25%, so we're right there. If you look at our general fund, what it's going to look like on our financials, we're going to end up with a surplus of $8 million in unassigned. So it means it's available to do whatever you want. You know, our fund balance reserve policy says that our unrestricted or unassigned balance should be 25, like I discussed, in 90 days. It also says if we fall below, that we should have a strategy to get back to that 25% within 5 years. It also says it's like if we have a surplus, like we do now, that we have the option, we should reserve 50%, but we'll have the option that we can actually do something with the other 50%. That being said, my recommendation tonight is that we actually spend 50% of our unrestricted reserves, that being because our capital infrastructure is so far behind. That would be approximately $4 million. And like Christy said, we want to spend it on one-time expenditures since this is not an ongoing, revenues aren't going to be coming to us in the future. So my recommendation would be that we move to commit these, though, that we don't just, we take it out of unassigned and we commit it. That being said, I know that we're going to meet our target. We still have to draw down some more of the ARPA in the next, this year, fiscal 2022. So I know that we're going to meet our target of 25%. And like I said, we're going to have the ARPA. We still have a district tax coming in higher. And we're still seeing some salary savings. I'm hoping that that's going to come down because as we fill positions, you know, we had 27 positions at the end of the year. We're now down to 19, and we had 3 new positions. So we've actually filled 10 more positions than we had. And that's good because that means that's service levels that we're giving to our citizens. That's really important. So this is one of the surveys we did in May when we weren't sure what we were going to be doing with the money. We did a survey to see what everybody wanted, and these are all the words. Kind of cool. You can look it over. These are some of the words that they said, or some of the things they want. If you look at the top row, you'll see those are not one-time money. So those are things that we wouldn't want to concentrate on. And these are the goals that we had, and I think we're hitting the number 1 to equip public safety. We'll have the opportunity, and we're also number 4, having a sustainable financial plan moving forward. All right, so now I'm going to turn it back to you guys. That was my recommendation. Is it something you guys want to move forward with? I recommend that I know a council member, Cordova, even said it once, you know, why don't we have reserves to do buildings? Why don't we have reserves to do cars? This is the opportunity to do that. This is our opportunity actually to start the capital improvement booklet. This is one of the things that I brought to the city because I knew someday we'd hopefully be in this position where we actually look at this booklet and spend time on these projects and bring them back to you guys so you guys can make decisions to make this a better city. I know we also had some handouts. Let me finish my presentation here. So these are some of the options we can do with one-time money. We could replace some of our fleet and move it into the internal service fund. We could start a grant program and move it into a special revenue fund, or we could move it into a capital development or capital project funds. So these are our options. Those are 3 options based upon one-time anomalies. And we have some handouts that we gave to you guys before. I was going to give them to you again so you have them readily available. And I'm also going to switch over to a spreadsheet that if you guys want to, we can click and go through some options that you guys have.
So for clarity, what you have recommended is that of that basically 8 million, we take 4 million and put it into our general fund reserve, which has been depleted to almost non-existent.
Yes.
And then take the balance of that and potentially work through the funding requests of one-time expenses that we have as potential uses for it.
Yes.
And that's what you mean by designating the fund, is to choose some of these things to fund.
Yeah, based upon what you guys give me as input,
Yeah.
I'll come back. This is a workshop.
Right.
So talk talk all you want, and we got all the staff here.
Okay.
We can explain what we're talking about on these projects if they make sense. If you have other projects you want us to look at, give us direction, and we'll come back with those, but yes, exactly.
So I'll open the floor to questions, but I think after we have some questions answered, I think the first priority is we should discuss the reserve amount and that transfer, and then know how much we're left to work with. So go ahead and ask your questions, but that's my suggested order of things, is to, after we ask a few questions, bring it back, talk about how much we're moving into reserve, get that off the table to know how much we have left to encumber. Councilmember Starbuck, I believe your light was on first.
Mr. Albro, to strengthen your argument, the benefit of reserves is one of the things we're rated on as a city. It helps with funding of bonds. Why don't you explain the benefit of us having reserves finally, to get us from number 11 from the bottom up?
Yeah, I think we're the worst actually when it came to reserves. It's super important. I mean, anything can happen, and we have no reserves. We just can't. I mean, we could have a disaster and we have no money. I mean, it's imperative that we have reserves. And my goal is to do best practice and do 25%. And I'd like to bring that back to you guys as part of the staff report as well, to re-solidify that our fund balance reserve policy.
I guess to dig a little deeper on this, the issue would be if we put more than your recommended $4 million into reserves, would that inherently save us money later when we go out for bond financing, loans, some of the capital improvement that we finance all the time at a lower interest rate? Is there benefit to going over $4 million that you recommend to help down the road?
Yeah, yes, there is. Keep in mind that we are at 21% when we close the books, so that will be what the raters look at. And keep in mind too that we're going to get another tranche of money coming through, and our reserves I know are going to be higher than 25%. So best practices, we will be practicing best practices. And if you look at a lot of the other things, there's a lot of other things they look at. How much do we have in our pension fund? You know, we are moving up. That did go up this year, and it's going to go up a lot more next year because of the rate of return that we got. Our OPEB for retiree health is fully funded. We have a lot of things on our books that are good. Or if you go through those, the reason why we got 11 and we were the worst and all the rest is we were hitting the mark on a lot of those ratings that the state did for us.
Right. So I mean, is it better to put 4, 5?
My recommendation would be to pull half out because of how far we are behind in our infrastructure, because I know that we'll have at least 25%, and that's our optimal goal by the end of June 30, 2022.
Do you see benefit on us waiting to disperse the excess $4 million when we go line by line on the budget in January, February, or do you want us to wing it from up here tonight?
This is a workshop. I can come back as many times as you want. That's why I kind of wanted this to be a workshop. So to me, it's just, if there's something you'd like to see happen and something you want to see move forward, we'll come back with a staff report. We'll explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, because I really think, I mean, I know what you're talking about with if we do this, then we'll have this much left. Very useful tool. It's not available tonight. The wish list, everybody's going to say, well, I want body cams and I want this, and we're going to sit up here and flail for an hour or two. I think it really comes down to, you're going to give us $4 million on one-time expenses. You've got a CIP or capital improvement up. We're not up here with the capital improvement, but we're all up here with our own ideas. I think maybe it's kind of like herding cats at this point, using it on us, as if you could come back with your strongest recommendations. I know we all had input. You know, my input was $1.4 million, and that's probably not going to fly. But the rest all have their own, but staff is the one that's going to drive the wagon in 2 years, so.
Yeah, and I agree. But you may want to look at the list and maybe pick some of the things that are critical that we're quite far behind on.
You have that list?
Yeah, I sure do.
Good.
Councilmember Cordova.
I was going to suggest that the council receive a copy, if it's going to be up for discussion right now, the funding request list, because the last one that I have was back in October, and I don't know if that is the most recent one, so I think.
How about if you want, we can switch gears. I can bring up the button
so.
budget thing where you can see the expenditures, and I'll pass the list out too.
Yes. And I just want to say that, that council has a unique opportunity. I mean, all these years, we've been challenged with not having any money, and now we have the opportunity, but I think it's a very tender balance, in my opinion, as to reserves and spending the money in the areas that we need it, because we desperately need certain things in this community. And so we can't just store the money away and think that all these things are not needed. We can't continue down that.
Yeah, and I'm okay with you guys picking two things, and we'll come back. I mean, and maybe tell us to, look into this, bring more information on this, we can have presentations on every single one of these if you want. Like I said, this is a workshop, and I foresee that we're going to have a lot of these in the future, and I look forward to it, actually.
Before we go to Councilmember Ball, I saw the city manager wave his hand.
I was just going to say, too, on some of these things, we have to remember that we can't, if council decide to go do it, some of them are going to take a year and a half to get there. So if you decide to put it off, then it's going to be that much longer.
Matter of fact, if I could, Marcy, if you could cursor down to fire. And I know fire has a Type 1 engine, a ladder truck, and some radios. I know that the trucks, unfortunately, they're in big demand, and it's going to take us a year and a half to get one. I recommend you don't even bother putting that on your wish list. But I would recommend that you pick one of those. And I know the fire's first selection was the Type 1 engine, since it's the front-running engine. We got one that's really breaking down. We got one replaced. I would recommend that you give us tonight, and I'll bring it back in the staff report direction, to get the city manager to actually sign a contract and move forward with building that out.
Which one, the Type 1?
The Type 1.
The Type 1. Okay.
And part of that, too, sorry to interrupt, is because of the length of time, we won't be paying on that for over a year to a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll have a lot of options. We'll have another go-around with this when we draw the second draw. But even if that doesn't pan out and that's not a priority, we still have an option to bring it into the budget. And even if we have to finance it, I think it's prudent for us to actually take action now. And like I said, I'd recommend that you guys do that, to give the city manager authority to sign that contract.
The other part, real quick, too, on that particular engine, it would be easier to build, but with all the other supply chain issues, it is taking longer. The fire department did say that as of February, the price does go up, and I don't recall the exact amount, but it was a substantial increase that the fire truck company will be charging. So another reason to start moving.
Councilmember Ball.
Yeah, I just wanted to slow this down maybe a little bit. I feel strongly that it isn't in our interest to knee-jerk any of this, and we have a golden opportunity to make some strategic decisions, but I would like it to be a series of meetings. I would like for us to have transparency with the community. They understand what we're investing in and why. And to do that in one night and just sign off on everything isn't necessarily something I'm in favor of. Just a small question for you. If we put $25,000 into reserves, would that be a better practice than we've been doing for some time?
I'm sorry, 25,000?
Sure. Now, I'm not suggesting we put $25,000, but I'm saying we've had a negative number. We haven't been, we've had no reserves, essentially.
Well, that's why I kind of wanted to follow our reserve policy. Our reserve policy says if you have a surplus and you have no reserves, you're going to put half of it away.
And that's a should.
And that's what I recommend we do.
Okay. So if we were to put $3 million in there, that would still be a substantial investment towards that. We might have additional revenues in the future to put towards reserves, so.
Keep in mind that based upon our budget for 2022, our reserve level should be around 11 million.
Mm-hmm. And when's the last time we were at 11 million?
Never that I've been here. I don't know. I don't think it ever has been that high. Last I saw was 8 million was about the max I've seen it. And we beat it now, I think.
Sure. Is it possible to go back to the other presentation that you had? You had a couple bullet points, and I think it was like maybe third to the last slide, third or fourth.
Give me a second, because it's on a different program.
Thank you.
You want me to back up?
Yeah, go back. Let's see. Okay, so the slide after this one.
After?
Yeah. So you kind of breezed through this pretty quickly. I get it. There's some bullet points here. But you missed numbers 2 and 3. So you said ensure a safe, supportive city through fully staffed public safety departments, and then you mentioned figure out a sustainable financial plan. Do you mind going over items 2 and 3 and elaborate a little bit on that and why they're there?
They're your goals.
Sure.
They're your goals during the workshop.
So do you disagree with those goals?
Oh, no, I don't disagree with them all. I was just saying that if we did do these one-time capital improvements, that we're going to hit number 1 and 2, we could hit the other ones too, if you will. I mean, it's like I said, it's a workshop, it's free form.
And I appreciate that. I think what I'm trying to show is that there is a wide flexibility of opportunity here for council to be very, very strategic and thoughtful. And so when I see something like provide support and partnerships that empower community members and volunteers, help their ability to improve Lompoc, or implement a community development program that improves opportunities for growth for our residents and businesses, that should be a part of this conversation instead of it only being, well, we've got to take care of public safety. Absolutely necessary, very important discussion to have. But this original American Rescue Plan, which has taken several iterations, its original goal was to help communities recover. And I just don't want to lose sight of some sort of balance of effort where at the end of the day, we haven't had this amazing opportunity and these resources, and the only thing we have to show for it is 7 shiny trucks and this and a couple things that we fixed in wastewater, maybe. My point is that I hope that we have a very thoughtful discussion on ways and that we weigh the benefits of some of these things in regard to its direct community impact. It's part of our due diligence, and I just wanted to highlight that it isn't just doing one thing at the police department and 3 things at the fire department or vice versa. We should look at every opportunity to help this community recover from what has been the worst case scenario. The reason we have reserves is because anything can happen. Well, I would submit that something has happened, and that has been the COVID pandemic. That's been its impact upon our economy and the citizens within this community. So I'm not saying it has to be one thing or another, but I would love for us to commit to having a well-rounded discussion on how using these funds can best help everyone in our community, and I think that's a fair discussion.
Very good.
So from my reading of this is, while we accept the first tranche of nearly 6-point-something million from the federal funds, all we've drawn down is 4.1 million.
Yes, that's right.
So that should all be one-time expenditures, and that's why you're recommending the amount be spent towards these items. And while the other is literally excess as a result of the balanced budget and the excess revenue that came in and reduction in expenditures. And that's money we wouldn't have normally seen anyway, and why it's a healthy concept to move it directly into reserves and not touch it is we didn't have it to spend then, and we should treat it like we don't have it to spend now in order to get us back to a closer, healthier reserves. And I think for me, having sat up here along with Dirk and Victor, there's been this long time lack of filling our financial obligations to that reserve that directly affects our ability to take out loans or bonds or finance or be seen as a healthy financial city. And it's very exciting to me, as difficult as it may be for the community, to accept that we took $4 million and put it somewhere that feels like it's not being spent. It is being spent in the right way. It's being put aside to improve our financial health, so all these other big projects that we don't have immediate revenue for, we can go out and get the funding either through a bond, through financing, through a grant that requires a match. We'll look healthier because of that set aside. So I'm just trying to make sure we as a council understand that there's $4 million available as a result of cost savings and increased revenue from the last budget cycle, and then there's only $4 million that's come out of the federal funds to spend.
One time, yeah.
Okay.
And mainly in a nutshell, just to add on to what you said, about 1.6 million was from the salary savings, and the other 2 million was really sales tax. We just had a stellar year in sales tax, and people stayed at home and bought stuff, and also the 2020 being a district tax and it being destination, so we got a lot of money. We're finding out that our citizens are actually buying a lot of stuff out of town, which makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. So
Just a friendly reminder, we would need to take public comment at some point too.
Sure. I plan to open it up, but I think I wanted to make sure we asked all the questions, went to public comment, and then came back and broke it into discussion of how much to send to reserve, and then ideas about how we might want to spend the other $4 million to come back to us later.
I'll wait.
Does that make sense? All right. Any more questions about the monies, how they came to us, how we might spend them, what recommendations staff has made, any ideas that you want to get clarity on before we go to public comment? All right, so we'll open the floor for public comment. You have 3 minutes, and the number to call is 805-875-8201, 805-875-8201. While we open it to the public, you have 3 minutes to come to the podium. Did we have any written communications on this?
Yes, ma'am. We received an email from Mr. Fink. It was delivered to council, placed on the website, and is outside for the public.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The podium is open. If you'd like to come, please come to the podium.
Something I just want to share. My name is Alfonso Modovar. Something I just wrote. What is love? First, we have to look up skywards and imagine what makes or describes the universe. I have to admit, it is a vast look. But for reasoning and thought, we could all agree it does work as in a whole. Now, meaning as into a whole being complete. There's no right suggestion for complete. Complete's a different experience for the majority in life, especially within nature versus nurture. Let's name love. Love is good. What is good? God, purpose, justice, courage, bravery, peace, faith, hope, and love. I could go on describing endlessly with the deepest of empathy. Empathy can interconnect the stars in the universe down to nature and animals, especially for balance. Chemistry is a mixture of combined substances, in this case, matter. Finding an identification of who you are, and when you interact in love and notice change, now you become whole, such like a new substance, trusting God.
Come forward. I haven't seen a signal from a phone call.
Well, there's one.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Hello, Council. Dave Baker, Chairman, Parks and Rec Commission. At our last Commissioners meeting, city staff presented their list of needs in which they hope to get funded by the funds. They will soon become available. Knowing and understand that these funds need to be split throughout all departments, our Commissioners had some great discussion on how to best spend any money we get. In your packet tonight, you should find a letter from our group with some recommendations. To summarize the letter, Commission is not in favor of spending this money on regular, reoccurring maintenance items. It should be approved through the annual budget process. It's our hope that we can show some love to some of the areas that are often neglected. Through our discussions, we were also surprised to find that the current city staff has never had a Parks and Rec master plan. With a master plan, opportunities like this make the request process much easier, as the assessment and prioritization process has already been updated. With that being said, the Commission hopes that money could be spent on a master plan and renovations to parks that have been neglected for many years, like the Riverbend Soccer Fields and Westvale Park. Don't get me wrong, city staff has been working hard at basic maintenance and upkeep, but parks like these need some serious modifications. Additionally, when it's time to assign money to each division, the Parks and Rec Commission would like to encourage council to let the public have participation in this process through the commission, and allow us to provide recommendations to you based on the amount delegated to our department, and a collaborative process with staff and interested community members. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take a caller.
Good evening. You're live in the Lompoc City Council meeting. You have 3 minutes to give your public comment. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and City staff. My name is Ashley Costa, and I'm a resident of the City of Lompoc. As you know, I was previously on the council, and I currently serve as the Executive Director for the Lompoc Valley Community Healthcare Organization. I'm calling in this evening to express my hope the City will further engage strategic planning to determine how to best expend the excess funds. In Councilmember Ball, I had no idea you would use the word strategic so often, but I really want to appreciate and value that statement that you made earlier. So, fiscal sustainability of the city is, of course, very important. I do support the utilization of a portion of the funds for the city's reserves. With tax income receipts exceeding estimates and additional ARPA funds coming down the pike, I believe we are well on our way with a patient and systemic approach, and without committing all $4 million recommended at this time in the staff report. I'm also aware of the various needs for deferred maintenance, fleet, and capital needs for the city-owned facilities, both public-facing and internal within the city. I do support the utilization, again, of a portion of the funds for these unfunded capital and maintenance needs, including some of the future ARPA dollars. However, I'm calling tonight to try to provide a passionate plea that the City Council consider a portion, I would suggest no less than $4 million, committed to a community investment fund. Perhaps utilizing that special revenue support programs fund type is the administrative mechanism in which to do this. So what would this fund entail? As you know, I wrote you a letter in the months past regarding the ARPA funds that stated the decisions made in the coming weeks and over the next year regarding the second tranche of funding will determine whether cities merely enjoy a brief stimulus or seed a new trajectory of inclusive economic growth. I encourage you not to only think about budget line items and checking boxes, but also think in terms of impact areas. Identify these priority areas and spend time determining how to allocate funds in a meaningful way to influence these specific impact areas through this one-time investment opportunity. An investment fund could pay for a strategic planner, of which there are many in our local area. They could convene the community, local leaders, city staff, commissioners, and elected officials to discuss potential impact areas, all of these areas which would impact our economy, our quality of life, and our ability to be resilient through the pandemic. So many of these areas are things we all know about, right? They could include things like concerns about public safety and violence, mental health and crisis intervention, limited access to arts and culture, how to increase and support nonprofit services, planning for a proactive approach to natural disasters and climate change, lack of youth activities or recreation, development of business support and economic development opportunities. So thank you. Of course, there are guidelines. Oh, was that my time?
You're at time, yes.
Okay, I just want to thank you all so much for your service and just ask as a local leader what you'll do to leverage the greatest long-term strategic and impactful use of these one-time funds. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we'll give the caller a chance to call back in if they want. I will, again, the floor is open, so if you would like to make public comment on this, you're welcome to come forward. Just want to make sure that the caller who was second in line gets a chance to call back in.
Good evening. You're live in the Lompoc City Council meeting. You have 3 minutes to provide public comment.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, Mayor, and everyone watching and listening from home. This is Leah from Lompoc, and I totally agree with what Ashley Costa just said. I think that if we can, in fact, put it into a fund that we don't have to spend it right away, and it can be put into, like a grant-based fund so we can use it in the community, I wholeheartedly think that's a great idea. But, that's a lot of money, and I think we should treat ourselves as a city. I think we should get new Christmas decorations. I'm at least a half a century old, and I think those decorations that are up are older than I am. So anyway, just a thought, it couldn't cost more than $200,000 to get some new Christmas decorations. And also, I have been on the Utility Commission, and we haven't been meeting lately. But I know when I made my first tour of the water treatment plant, there was discussion that there's something that we could do to actually do one more filtration of the water, and then we could actually use some of that water, gray water of some kind, to water our parks and use it for, beautification of the city and the medians. And anyway, if that's a small initial outlay of money, that would be a good idea. And then I know that we are going to continue to have blackouts in the state. We're going to continue to have bad fire season. So I think maybe is a good time to maybe consider spending some of that money on batteries for the city so that when we are affected by blackouts, through no fault of our own, we don't have to eat all the ice cream in the freezer. So anyway, and you might also consider just give the museum a chunk of money. Maybe they could paint the museum that make it look a little bit better. So anyway, like I said, what Ashley Costa said was way better than what I am rambling on about now, but I really think we should consider treating ourselves to new Christmas decorations. All right, have a great evening, everyone. Choose wisely. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. You're live in the Lompoc City Council meeting. You have 3 minutes to give your public comment. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name's Lillian Street. I serve on the Public Safety Commission, and I wanted to piggyback on the previous comments that, yes, we need Christmas lights. Those, the ones we have need a refreshment. And the simple beautifications that can be done will make a big difference in the outlook of people who see them every single day. So when we walk out there, we can see pride and have something to boast about and tell people, hey, yes, come to Lompoc, bring them here. There's so many things to do. On that note, I just want to say that public safety has to come from a holistic approach. So feeling good about your community because it looks good helps, you see it, people want to like pick up trash or do little things to keep it looking nice. Parks and Recs, giving them lots of money would be awesome. Everybody wants to go to Beatty Park, for example, because it's like the newest, greatest thing. But we can update a lot of the parks just by making them look a little nicer with some small improvements. So little things can go a long way. And one idea that can be brought up is putting owls out in Beatty Park area to help keep the squirrel population down. And that was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
Good evening, all. Good evening to the council. My name is Yasmin Dawson, and I'm on a leadership team for the Cahoots Lompoc project. And we at the Lompoc Cahoots project would like the opportunity to partner with you to bring an unarmed crisis intervention team to Lompoc. We ask you to explore funding to pilot this project. And at my end, I would like to say, if we always do what we always done, we'll always get what we always got. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Skinner. I'm District 4's Public Safety Commissioner. I really wanted to show up today to be a part of this conversation because being on prior to the Public Safety Commission, I was on the Economic Development Committee, and all we seemed to talk about till we're blue in the face is funding. And now it seems like we're getting a little bit of that. So just to piggyback off of obviously investing in the community, I think it's so important right now that we really show these entities like BASE and our community that is outsourcing for just groceries even, that we're kind of flipping the coin right now. As much as we're giving the thought of our general fund and how that's going to return to us, I really would like to make the suggestion that we put a heavy percentage towards our families and our children in the community. That could be school-based. At the next workshop, I might be a little better prepared for, just if we invest in the kids, then they would have something other to do than to contribute to the gang violence and activities around here. One of our hottest topics are shootings, and the trend seems to be they're just getting younger. And that is terrifying as a parent myself, obviously in District 4. If you know where that is, I'm right by Ocean and M Street. And these kids, they don't have anything to do in Lompoc. I grew up here. It's been a trend this whole time, but for work, I've been out on base for the last 3 years, and the number one thing is families coming. Not only are they strapped for where they can live, but Lompoc is last on the list because their safety and the lack of investment we have in the kids. So I leave that up to council. I'm sure you guys have so many ideas on how we can invest that turnaround, but even with a one-time allocation of funds towards something, I think we could really do a lot to show the community that we care about the kids first and foremost, because I'm a kid, I'm here, I'm trying to get involved, and I think we could do a lot more in that area, as well as Christmas lights. Man, that tree was so tiny. I just wanted to see a huge tree for Christmas as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Again, there's some patience that's going to be needed given the long, long list of a lot of things that we need to accomplish in this community. And I appreciate you all for coming forward and expressing your concerns. And it's going to be a difficult decision for council to, make some hard choices about where we spend this money. So I'd like to close public comment, seeing no one else rise and no additional calls coming in, and bring it back to council and start a discussion, first and foremost, on the reserve. I think it's really important that we consider this, potentially heed the advice of our financial director, soon-to-be city manager, and stabilize our financial health in a way that we haven't ever been able to, because that is revenue recognized from the prior budget. So, Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, Mr. Elbro, would this format, if we gave you what we would like to come back, work for you?
Yes.
Is that what you're really, the bottom line tonight is you're looking to narrow this list down to something?
And a lot of what's been crafted through that list is from staff.
Right.
It also came from the surveys that we did. That one of the things that was important to our community was public safety. And I know we have a lot of things that we're behind on public safety.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm prepared to do here is give you my input that I'd like to talk about when we do our workshop.
Sure, that'd be.
If that's all we're looking
there's a
for.
ton of different,
Well, I'm sure that you're going to get four other different.
Yeah, all the money's going to help the community, so I'm for all of it. So,
No,
but there's a lot of
absolutely.
ideas, and you said it really well. How do we herd all those cats and all those ideas into a mission that we all can get behind?
Yeah, well, I'm a big kid too here, so I want to get some of my stuff. I mean, you got to realize for me, this is quite over the hump. We went from furloughs to having reserves. It's been a long decade.
Yes.
And, I don't believe in if-come, so this is, for me, some things I'd like to really get out of the way that have been under the saddle of the council for a long time. And I'll go ahead and start with my wants. How's that?
Sure.
If staff is going to write these down, or are you going to go back and review? But on this list here, I am going to go ahead and say I'd like to look at all of the items for police. These items have been budget cycle after budget cycle it's time to get some of these done. And this is one-time shots to get there, other than the ongoing 400,000 for body cams.
And you can, if you wanted to tonight, you can make a motion, and somebody could second it, we can actually pick these, or we can bring
No,
it
no,
back
no,
with
I'd rather them
presentations.
come back and see what everybody else has.
Wanna get clarity.
I mean,
Sure.
these are
I
gonna
think
be
what we'll
items.
do, based on Councilmember Starbuck's request, is we'll go through and each one of us make a statement about reserve and our wish list so that you can take it back and work from that.
And,
Instead of it being a motion.
okay.
Because this is a
that's fine.
workshop.
That's great.
Okay.
Just to give you conceptually what my vision was on this booklet, the capital improvements, I got this from big cities that are really successful. They actually do what we're just doing. They have a surplus, and they say, we're going to commit so much to be given to our capital improvements so we can build our city, and it's out of the general fund, and it's sitting aside, and then we have different workshops, and it's a different pile of money. And you can always bring it back. If we're in trouble, you can always say, we're not going to do this project, we're not going to do that project, we're going to bring the money back into the general fund.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, and that's why we spent all that money on that document.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not to sit around and, you know, get replaced with butterflies. That's the hard document
And
there.
it's nice to know that this document's going to become something important in the future instead of just a paper drill.
And it is a fluid document.
Yeah.
And depending on, I am very willing to take the Park and Rec Commission recommendations for what they would like to do or seen. I'll move on to Public Works. I really have no idea what fleet replacements we need, but it would be nice to have a cohesive list of what it is. Is it going to be trees to cut, you know, boom lifts to cut trees, or street, you know, I don't know, but whatever we can get ahead on that once we get our fleet program moving again. I think you have sage advice here with the new Type 1 fire engine. The only thing that I really don't like about it is we buy 2 new engines within a year, so
Yeah.
poor council down the road when they have to replace 2 new engines at the same time again. So
Unfortunately, that's the way they died.
I
They're
really
dying.
hope we can do something in staggering those down the road. And, you know, a little one that's become an issue sometimes, but I really think we should look at the generator, emergency power for the Dewey Center, and put that on there. But that would be my basic input. And
bring back.
trust me when I say a minimum of the 4 million in the reserves. The reserves are so important, especially for future financing.
Councilmember Vega.
Dean, I'll give you my 2 cents here, 5 cents, 10 cents. You know, I think the reserve for 4 million, I think, is coming recommended by you. I would have to go with that. I think the public safety aspect of it, as far as fleet, things that are one-time anomalies that we don't have money for, we've had this discussion before, we can get ahead of the game by buying things that we never even saved for, giving people the equipment that will start and stop the way they need it to. I think so. The Type 1 fire engine, I think, is definitely one of them. The police part of it is one of them. Again, we've had input from the community that says, hey, we need to give something back, something people can see, feel, touch, visit, play on, and something that makes our community aesthetically looking better. So I would say, you know, we have a couple lists here. We need to look at a couple of these parks, whether it's Riverbend or Ryan Park. Ryan Park is income generation. It's revenue generation here. There's so much that can be done there as a one-time thing. You know, we have stage, we have clamshell thing. Yes, it's a park and recreation thing, but it's also revenue generation. It's something we never do. We don't put walls on that stage. We don't know that we could make that stage halfway bigger. We could prepare it for, you know, the next generation that's coming up. You know, it looks old. It is old. You know, so we can do better. Riverbend Park, huge. What a waste. You know, it's a waste because, you know, you can go out there and you can see the condition of it. Someone needs to do some infrastructure and put some gopher wire in, or put grass in and fix it so that we can utilize it, because that's a sell for Lompoc. And, you know, you may have some input on which park or whatever, but the soccer fields, you know, I think that's another revenue generation. It's a sell for Lompoc. You know, the community needs to see that our town is cleaned up, that we care. So a couple of things back and forth, kind of going back and forth on that. So I'm not sure what your take is on one-time expenditures, or if there's another way of allocating funds for that. You know, we're with this amount of money that we're talking about.
Another option too is we could, as a collective group, say we're gonna put X dollars into parks and let us figure it out.
Yeah.
That's okay, or percentage even. Like I said, a lot of other cities will put in these, and then it's kind of like they'll go through committees and they'll look at projects, you know, and they'll come up with ideas, maybe form ad hoc committees if you guys want to collectively work together and come up with ideas, and we can work towards whatever goal we want to do, whether it's Ryan or Bend. Those are really good ideas.
You know, there was another idea that came up with someone else as we had a conversation. You know, one-time anomalies are funding projects and committees or commissions or anything to help us move forward. You know, we asked people for input. Councilman Starbuck said, hey, why don't we ask our park commissioner or whatever. But again, you know, if there's a way of putting anything in a budget to help these little commissions, you know, help us, okay? We have people with zero budget, and you're asking for 100% of their time, and then you're asking people to commit and come in on these committees and commissions, and we have a lot of vacancies here, but with a little bit of money and a little bit of budget, maybe we would actually inspire someone to come in here and join up and give us their thoughts for us to make it. So anyway, another thought process. I'm kind of getting off track here, but I would say those things would be important. But as far as the reserve thing, I would actually support what you said.
Very
But I
good.
think the police aspect of it and the fire engine, you know, again, fleet, very important, because I think we've had this discussion. And fleet is something you need to save for, or you have to go budget, or you have to find grants or whatever. The money's there. We can actually fix that and buy yourself some time. We're in the middle of an impasse for budget with a 2-year budget, as you said. You know what? We got another year
Yeah.
to go. But this could actually get us ahead of the game, and then we put in a savings program and add some reserves to actually do it the right way.
Yeah, my vision is this document will be way after we're gone. They'll still be working on this, still improving the city, still putting their surpluses in there and making good decisions that'll help us in the future.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
For clarification, you said police, but what did you mean? The entire?
I'm sorry. The police, the equipment, actually what's in this category here, the police, body cameras, vehicles, and the computer-aided dispatch, which is basically in that first category, which includes what I would say radios, handheld radios and stuff to get them up to par as one-time expenses. I think that's really important. The Type 1 fire engine, I think, as you said, it's going to take us 15 months to get another one. I really think that everybody should have really good equipment, and we shouldn't be having things that are having to be worked on all the time. So I would really love to see them have the equipment they need. You know, I can't imagine you going out to start a fire engine and it doesn't start. You know what I mean? You'd hate to, you know, you think about these things, but, you know, they're cold starts. They got to jump. You want response times. So let's do what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ball, Cordova, input? Councilmember
So, if I may, if we added up all the things on the list, how much did it total up to?
We can do it real quick.
Roughly, maybe not have to.
I don't really know if you want to.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
So, and I appreciate, look, it's Christmas time. I
think there's-
appreciate,
Well, how much is
It was about 26 million.
Yeah, about 26 million.
I
Sorry,
was
there
going
was
to
a
say
total.
it's 26 or 28, yeah.
It's on the
Yeah.
other sheet.
so so I can illustrate this a little bit. So roughly 26 million, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then that book that you have, that CPI book, give me a really rough total of that wish list, which is not a wish list. We need to do it. We should have done most of it a long time ago. But if we add all this up, it's a lot.
Yeah,
Bear with me.
Just streets alone, I think, what, is Craig here? 50 million, 70 million?
Okay.
I mean, just streets alone to get it up to our index where we.
So we're upwards facing $100 million of challenges within this city. And that's the truth. That's the reality of where we're at. So I just want the community to be patient with us, because we're going to have to make some really critical decisions and spend this little tiny bit of $4 million when we still have this giant elephant that's $96 million left.
But
So
you know how you eat an elephant.
3%.
One bite at a time.
yes, one bite at a time. And that's a good point, because I did want to make this point, is that we're going to have to make some critical choices sooner than later on this first part of the funding. Not everyone's going to be happy, and probably most people are going to think we could have done more. But I just want to remind the community that things are looking up. And what I mean by that is we've got, as you mentioned, the second tranche of ARPA funds, which can help. You've got what you feel are sustainable increases in Measure I funds that we can benefit from as well. And as I'd like to remind everyone, Measure Q passed by 75%, and we don't know what that's going to equal. It could be $1 million a year, it could be a little bit more. My whole point is that I would love to have you all continue to be a part of this conversation, because we're going to have to take a bite of the elephant, a little bit here and a little bit there. So if you didn't get the thing on your wish list, don't run away, don't hide. Come back and stay engaged with us, because there are better days ahead. There are days and months and years ahead that, if we're lucky, we're not leaving it up to a poor council to figure it out. Why? Because the council in the future will hopefully benefit from us having adjusted our revenue stream upward. So anyway, I hope that makes sense to you all, is that whatever we come up with, I'd love to get this all done yesterday because the community needs it, but we do have additional opportunities over the next year for you all to stay engaged, to come and talk to us, and help us keep checking some of these things off the list. I hope that makes sense. I just wanted to put that out there. For me personally, the community's been asking for body cams for 10, 11, 12 years. That's a no-brainer for me. If we do everything on the police list, we pretty much wipe out anything left. So again, I'd like to get pieces of this and a piece of that as much as we possibly can. I think it's totally fair for kids that want to go to the library to use a restroom in the children's section that has been updated at least one time in the last 50 years. That's a benefit to the kids. That's a benefit to families. So there's some smaller costs on here that I think that we could definitely look at as well. As far as the parks go, look, if we want to make a perfect soccer field and make a tournament-ready thing, that's not going to cost $300,000. That's going to cost several $1 million for us to do it right. To keep it fixed, to put some lights in, that's going to be a lot of money. Can we get there? Yes, with a plan. That's why I'm definitely in favor of us having a master plan with our parks, so we don't keep looking at each other wondering like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Let's make a plan. And then let's figure out how to fund that plan and sustain it. I think that's fair. When it comes to community benefit, again, we need input from you. When we spend $100,000 on something, yes, it's necessary. But at the end of the day, is there a net benefit to family and children within our town? Yes, the reserves are absolutely necessary, and happily, I'm very much in favor of us putting a decent amount of money there. Why? Because that takes our credit rating from, if you have credit, it takes it from being roughly 500 or horrible to something that's actually a really good credit rating. And long term, that can help us because they're not charging us 11% interest. They may charge us 3%. So imagine all the savings over time that we can get when we improve our credit rating. And that's what we can do with reserves and prepare for a rainy day. So look, there's a lot of choices here. And for me to just sit here and say in 7 minutes, like, this is what I want, and that's it. I would push for us to have an extended conversation with the community. If you're looking for me to commit to reserves and a couple of big item things that need to be signed off on sooner than later so we can get the process moving, absolutely, let's do that. No problem. But some of these other things, so let's not take it lightly that there is a really good opportunity for us to make an impact on real people. And it may not take a lot of money, but it will take a lot of thoughtfulness, and that's why we should take our time on this. That's all I have to say.
So did you contribute enough to a list for staff to consider for the next workshop?
I'd leave that up to them.
Okay. Again, did you feel you gave enough feedback? Because you kind of rambled on some things, and I just want to make sure those were the things you want to consider at the next workshop as priority.
Sure. Are we deciding to leave some things out for the next go-around? Is that what we're...
Well, no, the discussion here was each one go through and give like a short wish list to bring back for discussion and decision. So we're not making a decision, but we're giving staff some wiggle room to come back and try and make the best of everything. And I just wanted to make sure.
And maybe, and this is where I get confused a little bit, is as the current city manager mentioned, some of these things that we may agree to, we may not be paying for or even needing to pay for a year, and I don't want us to get in debt on those things, but maybe you can explain to me if I say, well, okay, let's see, I want police radios and I want this and this, am I committing that $3 million tonight, and that leaves us with $1 million to discuss? Or maybe you can elaborate how that works.
I'd have to bring it back. I mean, this is just a workshop, but I could bring it back and you guys could vote on it at that point in time. You could give me direction to bring it back, either or. But you're just giving me direction on what to bring back. So if you said you wanted that to come back, it still could come back, and it could be 3 don't want it and 2 do, and it didn't go forward.
Okay.
Or the other way around.
Well, for me, if you want me to be as specific as I can be, body cameras, police vehicles, I have no problem with that. Radios, look, we need radios because criminals can hear what they're saying on the radios. That's not ideal. I'd love for us to show some investment in the library, if that's just a little bit, but it makes a gesture towards the youth in our community. My thing is, everything on this list, is it going to help our youth?
I know
That's important.
Gilda still may want to make a comment, but I think what I'm getting from y'all is you want a more compressed list. Come back with a more compressed list, and I'll get staff to come in and talk about what that list would look like.
So I personally hear that too, but I feel like, again, all we're doing is saying this is the only list. This is the only list we have. If we want to do something creative, we have to make that up now, or we have to...
No, what staff is asking for is for us to start making decisions on this. They need some feedback because the lists, whether it's the funding request that was put forth by staff, or it was the survey that we did with the public, or it's public comments that come through here, it needs to be whittled down, or the capital improvement plan. I mean, there's an entire book that's not even here. But to have staff help us move forward on this, at least this 4 million portion, giving a little direction to come back and whittle it down and saying, the majority of you were talking about these items. So we have gone back to staff and prioritized them and brought them back. And then we discuss it and potentially make a motion and allot those funds. We don't have to do it at the time. It could be another workshop after that. But to move this forward, staff needs some direction for us. And I think what the workshop allows is for us not to necessarily make a motion and solidify on it. It's, hey, these are where each of us are thinking. If you can come together with a clear plan that accommodates most of our requests this first time around, it's approaching taking the bites, right? And we can't take the bites without a proposed plan coming back to us. And if they don't have any feedback on what that might look like, then it's hard for them to whittle it down and just do it from staff's perspective. So that's what they're trying to do. Okay? Is there something else from the city clerk that you're?
It's still very broad. What Councilmember Ball said was radios, cameras, vehicles, maybe some youth. So I'm not really sure what you want in this list that goes to staff to return to you. Sure.
So I guess I'm just frustrated because I feel like I'm being painted into a corner to say, well, there goes the $1.5 million and this, and then we're going to realize, so we did these 2 things for the police, 1 or 2 things for the fire department, a few things for the library, and there's nothing left for the community.
In this first go-round,
Yeah.
because again, there's going to be additional updates with additional revenue coming in from Measure Q, coming in for the next tranche. So this is, as you said, an ongoing discussion.
But a lot of these things could also fit under that category, and that's where I'm coming from.
Absolutely, and again, if it comes back and you don't agree with any of what comes back, it's your opportunity to convince us we failed the first workshop and we need to revisit it. But if we don't start moving things forward, it's going to be a full another year before we move forward on anything. And it's already been 6 months while we waited to hear what the rules were. And the community's asking us to invest in it, and we need to at least move forward on that discussion. So what you're doing is giving a few items to be considered in this go-round. And you don't have to spend all of the $4 million all on 3 things. You could suggest, like you did, something at the library, something at a park, something that's, $100,000 set aside for commissions and committees. You can make those suggestions now and kind of spread it all over the place, or you can get very specific. So again, you can choose how you want to give the feedback. It's just important that staff had the feedback so we make progress.
So I won't waste anyone else's time. I'll be as quick and concise as I can.
No, I'm happy to answer any questions or get staff to.
Just so you have a working list, at least for me.
Yeah.
This is for sure, the rest can be hashed out. So body cameras and police vehicles is where I'm at with those things. Library, youth restrooms, LED interior lighting, and secure the basement in the library. Those are those three things. Parks, tractor and aerator equipment for all fields. Kids play on the fields. Let's focus on that. Master plan, no-brainer there. Some of the lower hanging fruit until I commit to something bigger. Any way that we can update a playground so it treats people with ADA complications a little bit better, that's a great gesture we can make for our community. We've done that at Beatty Park. That's an amazing thing there. I'd love to see, Westville Park hasn't had anything change since 1960 something except for a little tiny new playground. So something that could happen there that's dynamic. I'd love to see something there. Let's see, Public Works. I think for me, I agree with Councilmember Starbuck about the fleet replacement. I just need more details. That's a big number, and that could be 2 trucks or it could be 11 vehicles. I don't know that. City radio upgrades, I see benefit in that specifically, at least with this go-round. Fire department, I'm all in on the Type 1 fire engine. That's a no-brainer. Radios, if we could, that would be great. I've probably blown past the $4 million already, but that's kind of where I'm at with that.
I think we're all going to.
It's kind of like having the Sears catalog. It's like, oh,
It's like shopping for Christmas. It's really.
you guys don't remember that. I don't do those no more. Huh?
Oh, I remember my Sears catalog. I had every page bent over with, and then when
Sorry, didn't mean to date myself.
sticky notes came out, I started using those. All right, Councilmember Cordova.
So, we didn't get here overnight, and it will take years for us to fix all the issues that are in this community. The deterioration of our city or of our city infrastructure is what has us in stitches right now. There's a lot of critical, high priority items. And for me, life safety, in my industry, life safety supersedes everything. Because if we can't provide the safety of these residents, what good does it do us to fix a park or to give them something else when we can't even guarantee that our fire truck will make it to their house, or that the tallest building in Lompoc will have a ladder truck in the event of a fire, or that our police department will not be able to properly communicate with area law enforcement or services to get the critical help that we need. I think Chief or someone said in the last meeting, they're having to make 5 calls to coordinate support coming into Lompoc sometimes. So there's a lot of things. I would love to see the public safety items be taken care of. I think when we're talking about radios, the computer-aided dispatch, I think that's critical for us. I would love to see the new fire truck. Again, this is a wish list, I understand, and I'm not saying that my items should be any more important than anybody else's. This is just what I'm thinking about. And I think that over time, we're going to have the opportunity through a proper budget process with funding this time around, hopefully, to really start putting buckets and start putting money in these buckets to start fixing a lot of the things in our community. But it's unfair to tell the public that let's start spending this money and let's get you touchy-feely, beautiful things, because we actually need to protect them too. So the body cams, absolutely. The public has been asking for that for a long time. I would love to see that come in. Dean, welcome to a whole new headache, because you had the headache before of trying to balance an empty checkbook. And now you're going to have the responsibility as city manager to now the calling of all these community people and this council. So you know the numbers. We will get to work through those. And I hope that what I see in the future is a budget that starts to address some of these challenges. It does us no good to buy a piece of machinery for parks if we don't have staff to run it. I won't go for that. But I do want to see an actual comprehensive plan so that we can start funding our parks, and so that in the future we can start seeing those buckets of money and they can actually start having use of that. So that's what I'd like to see.
Councilmember Vega, you said there was something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think we're to a point, or are we planning on addressing the reserve as a consensus? Are we to that point at least, and then moving forward, okay? It seems like we're all on the same page, but I haven't heard a motion saying, okay, that we're going to accept the finance manager's recommendations so that we can move forward. Right now, we're going back and forth about some things that can be
Okay,
discussed somewhere
this is a workshop.
No, but I want to say my piece, okay?
No.
And it's a workshop, so I can say my piece, and I can say, hey, let's make a recommendation moving forward, accepting is, and we'll have another meeting and keep talking.
Sure. We'll do that after I give my list. How's that?
Gosh.
How about that? Councilmember Cordova, one question, your stance on the reserves.
I support the reserves, but Dean, if you, again, you having sat in that chair, about to vacate that chair, okay, and put on a different hat, if you can consider the possibility of slightly less, because you know that we will have potentially more money coming in, that we can spend just a little bit more now, I'm going to leave that as a recommendation, but I fully support the putting money away, because I understand, as Councilmember Starbucks said, we need to better our credibility as a city. Our financial credibility is at stake. We will never succeed if we do not have financial stability.
Okay.
And I'll make one comment if you don't mind. Yes, as we go through the other Q and what we see the numbers for I, I'll bring back more money and I'll talk about different types of money that we can spend, ongoing commitments, one time. If it's a measure I-2020 and the sales tax comes in higher, you can do either or. You can do ongoing commitments or you can do it in one time. So yes, my reason I picked that 4 million is because that's what our reserve policy is. And I know we were so far behind our reserve policy, I wanted to just set some rules down that we follow. And that's where I came up with that number. And I agree, but I will promise you that I will be bringing these back with different types of money and different types of options for you guys on council.
Okay. I already stated I support the 4 million in reserve, and then for me, I look at how we were able to substantiate the COVID expenditures and recover and claim this first 4.1 million to spend, and it was a drawdown based on public safety's COVID impact, and so we cost recovered through public safety. So for me, the priority is to return that funding via, hey, you helped us by all the things you were having to do and all that additional cost and all that additional work, to focus on those public safety issues, because it has been a request from this community starting 5-6 years ago, as even before we slid into where we currently stand. And so for me, the priorities are the radios and the body cams. I would love the dispatch, but it eats into the 4 million pretty quickly. So the body cams and the police radios are number one for me. And then within public safety, it's the dispatch next. And if we improve our financial status, then leasing or purchasing police vehicles will be a better rate, hopefully, because our finances improved. So budgeting for those. Under the fire, I fully support the Type 1 engine. I would love for us to see how quickly we can fund the aerial truck in a, improved, again, financial situation. What does purchasing it look like, and what's our financing given we put a large amount into our reserves? And of course, if getting the radios for fire can be part of, improved cost for getting police radios, if it all works out that they're similar, that also means fleet radios can be replaced. If they're all within sort of the same, and the more you purchase, maybe it reduces the cost. So radios around for everyone, because if we can't communicate with each other, we can't actually deliver services. And then from there, it is what are some small impacts we can make this time around, knowing that we have nearly 8 million more to come our way at some point. But these one-time investments, if we have $500,000 left over somewhere in the wiggle room, to look at some of these smaller, quick impacts that we might have, whether it's replacing playground equipment at one of the parks, or it's doing the restrooms at the library, or it's replacing the barbecue pits at Ryan Park. Something that feels immediate for those using it. But for me, the highest priority, particularly because we were able to justify pulling this first drawdown based on public safety's costs and expenditures, it would be to focus on public safety. Okay. pretty broad, good feedback from us, help whittle it down a little.
I think we're narrowing it down. We started out the whole pool, and now we got a
All
little
right.
smaller.
Councilmember Ball?
Can I make just one more quick pitch, and I'll shut up for the remainder. Thank you for your patience. Everyone's still awake. Good. So there's a couple items on here under the what's it listed as under Community Development, Parks and Rec. Now they're big totals. There's one that says new program, economic recovery. It's $750,000. There's comprehensive or a new program development incentives, $1 million. Obviously, those are huge amounts of money, and in terms of priority, that amount of money doesn't supersede our needs in public safety. But I just wanted to share a couple of, and again, it doesn't have to be this, but I'd love for staff to consider, again, those little ways where it's not a lot of money, but it gives us leverage with the community to do something better. So one idea, I'll list a couple I had, it's like a beautification fund. Well, what does that mean? Just beautification, we're gonna throw it. We've got these commissions and committees. We've got Parks and Rec, we've got Public Safety. We've got these commissions that are volunteers, people looking for ways to benefit their community. What if a beautification committee had a budget of like $25,000 or $10,000, and 6 committees had $10,000, and they were able to use that to make a deeper impact upon the community in a beneficial way, or just do something thoughtful? That's not $1 million. That's not $750,000. That's something that we can do. That's incredibly affordable from this perspective. So it's a gesture. One other idea, and again, let's be creative. Dump days. We used to have something like that, but everyone complains like the dump, they charge too much, or we never go, or something, and people leave their stuff out all the time. Well, what about once a quarter? Could we come up with $50,000 and pay for people's dump fees 4 times a year to head on up there and leave their stuff? Would it incentivize people to maybe clean up their area a little bit? Maybe. My whole point is, like, it doesn't take $750,000 to make some inroads within our community. So I'd just love to see some outside the box ideas on how we leverage some of the folks in our community to help us get some stuff done. Anyway, just a thought.
An excellent expansion on find some small things that have a direct impact so that it doesn't feel like all we did was spend on public safety, even though it's difficult to whittle that down. Yes, City Clerk.
Councilmember Ball. So you
$7 million.
You mentioned $10,000 to boards, commissions, and committees, and you said 6. We have more than 6.
Sure, we have 13. My thought was to split off the ones that are based on utilities that are directly impacting, dealing with, utilities, and perhaps the airport doesn't need $10,000 to make inroads in the community, but there are some community-facing ones. So for me, that's Public Safety Commission, Beautification Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, there's probably Library Commission. Those are 4 that come to mind right now. But again, they're all not created equal, and they have different purposes.
Human Services Commission, Planning Commission, they're not in you don't want to give them money.
I think that's totally separate from this, from where I'm looking for volunteers showing up where they're trying to come up with ideas to implement something within the community. Planning Commission is not always sitting up here being creative. They're dealing with staff presenting, reports, and they've got to vote on getting something approved. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those commissions and committees that are just desperate to get some teeth into their commission where they can affect some change in parks or in the conversation of public safety. So again, council may not agree with that separation, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Councilmember Cordova.
I just want to clarify, though, at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about these being one-time anomalies. If we start allocating these things, these are ongoing expenses that really need to come out of our budget. Mm-hmm. We have to learn to build budgets, not to say that you didn't know how, you just didn't have the money to be able to put it in there. You and I have had these conversations. So we just need to be able to restructure or add the elements, and I keep calling them buckets, to our budget. So I disagree with this because although, yes, it's hopeful and we should be doing it out of our budget. This is a one-time anomaly fund that we're going to have, and that's what I understood at the beginning of the presentation.
I was thinking the same thing. Where there's different options, we might be able to look and come back with some options that we could do something, maybe a grant program, or they could come up with something that would do, that would be one time, like they want to get together and they want to do this.
And I'd be happy, I do my own research too. I'll bring a list of other cities and how they've literally stepped up and looked at the ARPA funds and said, this is what our community needs. And there's a wide swath of options that they've all looked at. And so I'm not saying it has to be one way or the other, but there's definitely a lot of creative ways where that money gets back into the community and it stimulates the community. It helps small business people. And those small business people would love to have money in reserves too, but a lot of them are desperate. A lot of them are trying to figure stuff out right now. So again, it's just us having a thoughtful conversation about what can we do for real people as soon as possible as a part of this big pile of money to help people.
And like I said, this is ongoing. We'll bring back more stuff and we'll talk more and we'll get input.
Well, and some of these
You guys,
ideas might be a better usage through something like Measure Q, which is ongoing funding, and something that it's not just a one-time, hey, this go round, you have 10K as a commission, but hey, we want to fund a commission's budget for ongoing at a certain level. So some of these ideas are great and we want to do them, but maybe the funding from the federal government isn't the right use of it. So I think bringing that back and educating on us based on the rules that we're trying to follow so that we don't get caught out and suddenly have to take our reserves and pay it back to the federal government is really important.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that we did in this budget that will free up more money in the future for things like that as well.
Okay. Councilmember Starbuck.
Go ahead and take Councilmember.
I was just going to say that you're 100% supported. I just think that the engine that we need to use to get there is totally different. And keep in mind, any research that you bring to the council, also consider that those cities may not be as depleted as we are with regards to infrastructure and all of our equipment. So yes, they may have found other ways to spend the ARPA money, but we are in dire situation. So just consider that you're validated, your points are validated, and I honor that, and I want to see that happen as well, but just in a different engine.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Oh, that wasn't what I was going to talk about, but thank you. All five of us are in agreement on the on the fire truck. Would it help you if we started the wheels moving on that now?
Sure, I'll bring the staff report.
What I would absolutely like to do at this point.
I was going to try and bring that back anyway, so if you like it.
I'm going to make it easy for you. You got a lot on your plate. I was going to make a motion that we go ahead and we move forward with the purchase of the fire truck.
I don't think it needs to come out of this money, but I would like to have the authority for the city manager to sign the contract and start building it.
Up to $750,000?
Sure.
Yeah, the only thing I find bad about this is if that new fire truck's a lemon. We haven't put hours on it yet, and if it pans out to be a lemon and we buy two of them, won't we look good then?
You brought up a really good point. It's not good practice to buy them both at the same time.
We can't help it at this
20
point,
years
but I mean, if...
20 years we'll come down and talk about,
I'm just saying, it's something to move forward on. We've got a consensus on the council. It's not going to get any cheaper. Whatever, I just brought it up. I'll make the motion if the council wants to do it.
Councilmember Cordova.
I just have a question with that. As much as I would love to purchase a whole new fire engine, my concern would be then we start kind of like what makes then some of the other items in public safety not as important to make a decision today because they're all dire to me, and then I feel like we get into that whole, are we just doing one thing and then maybe perhaps other departments aren't going to get their priorities as well. So I don't know.
So I've heard you say that you have a staff report ready to go pretty close. And
won't I?
And that you might be able to bring it back on the 21st for further discussion. So how about that's the motion, Dirk?
Didn't we just have that staff report a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I think that's why it's close to being
change
ready.
The date?
Yeah, and just change the date. I think
time.
having the discussion and understanding its importance as to why they want to move quicker is important, and that discussion hasn't happened tonight and shouldn't happen tonight because it's not agendized. So I think modifying Dirk's request not to decide to purchase it, but to bring the staff report back so you can explain to us why we're committing the money, whether it's ARPA funds or other funds, is important. And having that discussion that night will be that discussion, because tonight it's not agendized and having a discussion is inappropriate. Does that work for you?
I agree. And by the way, Dirk, you're my hero.
So you don't need to interject right now unless you really, really want to. All right, save your speech for us for next meeting. That was a motion and a second to bring the staff report back for an F1 fire truck and how you plan to finance it and why the need to do it quicker than waiting. Gilda, who didn't agree but then agreed, so. Yeah, he nodded his head. Yeah.
No, you did.
He asked if you agreed. I agreed. He agreed.
You're cheap, dude.
He's a hero.
You didn't even change your motion. Sorry. Thanks, Janelle.
Yeah, all right. All right, so motion, second on the floor, we'll vote. And that comes back 5-0. On the rest of it, because it was a workshop, we were just providing general direction for you to formulate and come back. City clerk's nodding her head that she got enough notes, and thankfully there's torturous hours of recording to listen to if you need to go back. Any other concerns or directions you need from us, Mr. Albro?
Nope, I think you gave me my marching orders, and I'll be back.
All righty. All right, now if I can just find my agenda and make sure I'm in the right place, because I wrote on the back of 1,001 things.
You're on your own.
And I'm on my own. I can tell. Everybody's like, you're on your own. Sorry, lady. Okay, so we are at the end of the page. Awesome. Okay. Any written communications?
No, ma'am, nothing.
None. All right. Final oral communications of the evening. You have 2 minutes to speak on city matters. You may call in at 805-875-8201, 805-875-8201. If you would like to speak to city matters, you have 2 minutes and may come forward to the podium. We're going to kill time again while we wait for the 30-second delay to get out to the community and give them a chance to dial in if they would like to speak to an issue. So I want to say thank you to all of you who came out tonight. We really appreciate your feedback, and as Councilmember Ball says, stay engaged, bring your friends. We want you present, we want you calling in, we want to hear from you. Please do not be afraid to come to a council meeting. Right now, we're really only giving you our eye expressions, so you can't see if we're angry or we're not angry or we're happy or we're sad, and that's frustrating to me. Though no matter what we look like, we always want to hear from our public. We want to hear what you think is important because we're your representatives. And so we may all have ideas, but if we don't hear from you, decisions will be made in a vacuum. And success, a public comment, come forward.
Hi, this is Maria Garcia Cacique, and I just have a question. I appreciate that you're taking the time to hear from community. So what will be the format that you will hear from community besides coming to the next meeting?
So right now, the council meeting is the only format of public forum that is official. We can choose to have additional meetings and workshops, and we might choose to have one at the DeWeese Center or others, but additional community meetings can be held. So if you want one of us from the district or myself as mayor to come to a neighborhood and you want to help organize a meeting, any of us are happy to do those to get feedback, because we often know that sometimes the meeting needs to be at a different time or at a different location to accommodate some of our community. But as far as the council, we historically have the discussions at council meeting on this agenda at this time, which is why the phone is here, the email's available, and public speaking, because this is the public forum. Other meetings can be held and we can arrange them, and any of us can hold an individual meeting and notify it. And if we do that, we just have to be careful not to violate the Brown Act. If it's a publicly notified meeting, it doesn't violate the Brown Act, but we're happy to do that. Seeing no one call in, we will close public oral communications for the evening and bring it back to council. Councilmember Cordova.
No reports.
All right. Councilmember Starbuck.
No reports, but a quick question. Last meeting, I talked about the status of our enterprise funds. It didn't show up on future council agendas, and we didn't get a report on the status of our enterprise funds. Is that going to be on the 21st, or?
I do apologize for that. I don't remember.
We are working on a staff report as we speak. I think it's going to be January, just because of staffing and time.
Understand, I know you've got all your audit and everything. This was not supposed to be a real big thing. It's just, are we in trouble? How much? General numbers, please. I mean, we've been a long time with a lot of people not paying bills, et cetera, so we need an idea.
Okay, we can get that.
All right, Councilmember Vega.
I'd like to, I have a council request, and that may be on your request, Mayor, I'm not sure, but I have
Go for it.
Assistant City Manager.
Okay.
We have a new appointee now for City Manager. We have a new person that's now accepted. And I believe it used to be on our vacancy list, and it was taken off because it was never filled. And I'd like to make a motion that we actually bring back that position. And I'd like council support so we can have that discussion and make that part of our future plans here, because I believe that our new city manager is going to need support. We wish we have a little bit more money now than we used to, so I think it's a good time. So that's my motion.
So your motion is to request staff to bring back the proposal to return the ACM position and what that budget would be so we could review it and approve.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Councilmember Cordova.
200% support.
Councilmember
Wow.
Starbuck.
Just quickly, I think that we funded that position, correct?
We funded the deputy city manager position,
Right,
but
it's
not
ju-
the
it's just-
ACM. And so we're adjusting it to an ACM.
Okay, we're just changing the names.
There's a result,
But
it also
everybody's
changes the pay.
protected.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right, Councilmember Ball.
I may have misheard. Was there a time request for
You know, I
expediency
think-
on this, or?
Yeah, you're right. I think I'd like to amend that request and say as soon as possible, because possibly the next council meeting, if we can do it. If we can agendize that to have that discussion and maybe a vote so that we can bring back and
January 18th, not December 21st, because I'm guessing.
can you guys do it by December 21st or not?
I was just going to text Gabe right now I taxed him.
He's in the back of the room, so he would be able to tell us whether it's December 21st
I'm not sure
or
how long
January
that would
18th.
take for him to do
gonna-
all of the job description and everything
I really
else.
don't want to wait till next year, you know?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Osborne, members of the council. We do have a council report deadline, but we can get it on. I have a great support staff, and we can shift that this week and work on that and hopefully have it on the.
So your goal, you're happy to make the 21st your goal, but if you can't, it would be January 18th.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah,
is that
we
good
will do
enough?
everything we can to bring it back on
I
the
didn't
21st.
understand you, shoot, really, I'm sorry.
I'm
No,
sorry,
no.
I'll take this off.
That's okay, no, I got you.
So there's a deadline on when these staff reports are due, and that was last Friday. However, my staff, we can shift and we can work on it and try to get it on to the 21st, which means we would have to have it as soon as we can, and we'll start that process tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And if it doesn't work out, it'll be on the 18th.
Gotcha, man.
Okay?
Appreciate it.
We're good with that? All right, so I heard.
Yeah, I'm right, hey Gabe, I'm writing that down, dude. Okay, thank you.
And I had a second. And there's our third. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Councilmember?
Nothing else. Thank
All
you
righty.
very much.
Thank you for making that request. I will scratch it off my list. Councilmember Ball.
So as you all know, I've talked way too much tonight. So the only thing I'll say is I had a tremendous and wonderful time being in my first Christmas parade in Lompoc. And I just want to give a really grateful shout out to our city staff, public safety, who kept us safe at each intersection, everyone who came together and made that a really delightful holiday experience for the folks in our town who are desperate for some entertainment. So thank you to the city staff for making that such a wonderful event. And I had a blast.
And I will say ditto, I really appreciate it. I will say that I think it was the most entries we had in quite a while, and the crowds were definitely bigger than I have seen in a long time, and I just really appreciate everyone from those who put a float in, to the community coming out, to all the hard work our staff did, both on the parade and the Christmas lighting. And yes, while we had a very small tree, I think that all the lights that we have this year, and we'll get to a bigger tree because we have a better budget. So we'll get there. It's a promise. I attended the Interfaith Thanksgiving event, and I want to say thank you to all of the different faiths that showed up for that. I want to invite you to also get on the list to do our invocation. I think it was a beautiful reflection of the diversity in our community, and I'd like to see that here in council. So if you participated in the Interfaith, please consider getting on our invocation list. Our city clerk can tell you who that contact is. We don't manage it. Local faith-based organizations do. I attended the Santa Barbara County Northern County Branch Jail ribbon cutting. It is an amazing facility, and the direction with which it will go to give opportunities to those that are confined to improve their lives is a better direction than how we have historically treated it, and so I'm looking forward to seeing it succeed. And I also know our police department's very excited to not have to travel all the way to Santa Barbara and lose even more time when taking individuals to the jail. It is a huge improvement. It's only about a 20-minute drive from us, so I know that's a benefit to our staff given how short we are on them. I attended the Air Pollution Control District's brief meeting. I attended several Northern California Power Agency meetings over the last week, but all important decisions to be made there. And I attended this quarter, my rotation is the public safety meeting, which is another reason the decisions I'm making with the ARPA funds is public safety related, is due to that advocacy from that group. And then I took a call from the governor's external affairs regional office to talk about what our local needs are and build that relationship to advocate at the state level given the infrastructure dollars that are coming down. And we're a small town and might not get as much as we need, but building that relationship might improve that. I have a couple of announcements, I know, bear with me, but this is the time of year where we give. And I think it's important to know what those opportunities are for those in our community that can support and want to support. So Calm is doing their holiday support for some Lompoc families, and they're looking for $25 to $200 gift cards in order to purchase the things that are being looked for by those families. If you'd like, you can contribute directly. You can go online at calm4kids.org and contribute, or you can call 805-441-1520 to contribute. Excel Personnel business is doing holiday support for residents, senior residents at the Fountain Square Senior Living City. Their number to call and support that is 735-6723, and you can see what their list of needs are and help contribute either the financial support to do it or purchase the items. There is the library Christmas tree raffle, and it's a fundraiser done by Friends of Library, and it's great. You have these pre-decorated trees that are about this tall with different themes. It's $1 per ticket or 6 for $5, and the drawing is on the 18th, Saturday the 18th at 2 p.m. And so that's an exciting way to get yourself a Christmas tree for maybe $1 or $5 or $20, depending on how it goes, and help the library out. The city is having a streetscape community workshop on the 18th from 9 to noon, which is a Saturday, at Old Town Market. The funds were granted to us to examine how we can improve the look and feel and usage of H and Ocean, Highway 1 and 246. And so if you get an opportunity to go to Old Town Market, stop by the city booth and give feedback on what you'd like to see happen to H Street and Ocean, so we can finalize that plan and submit it. And then there is a important program that's being done that helps with understanding opioid overdose and prevention. It is going to be via Zoom on the 15th from 6:30 to 7:30, and you can find out more information on it at opioidsafetysb.org or call 805-260-1108 to get the information on how to log in. And they will be doing a all Spanish version in January, so as soon as I hear about that, I'll let you know. And then one final thing, the Landsat 9, that launch, The first images of Earth have been returned, and so it's really exciting to see the results of the big launch that went out here and that impact that it has on the entire world when we get to see these things happen. All right, we'll adjourn this meeting until the next Lompoc City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m. on December 21st, 2021. Be safe.